Multiple names have been used in the past, including 247CTNE, LLC, 8 Minute Solar, Solar Pro Land Investments, Renewa, 1 LLC, and Public Service CPS has just shown up recently. Attached is a corporate wiki. I didn't attach it, as you can see, all 40 companies that are all solar companies that are all connected somewhat. I have no idea how. Given the location of the project on the far east side of Wilson County, if it should result in any new investment related to the project, it will likely be in Nixon and Gonzales County, not Wilson County. New jobs, 6, and a BESS facility near a refinery. Battery storage systems do present a fire hazard. How can 600 megawatt battery storage provide benefit to the land and not constitute a public safety hazard? The proposed tax abatement agreement was apparently written by Enbridge, a Canadian energy company. It is written totally in favor of Terrafork Solar LLC. Section 9 of the agreement is an example. The agreement, as posted on the Wilson County website, does not include all the attachments, and the maps are inadequate. Again, a lack of transparency. I would also like to call your attention to an option for a wind energy lease signed and filed last year between ACE, Devco, NC LLC, and a landowner in the Clear Fork Solar Project. ACE Devco NC is a subsidiary of AES, a global energy company, not a small company, needing an abatement. Transparency. Additionally, filings for these leases and plans are often only memorandum agreements, which are used to hide content of the complete instrument. Attached are a few pages of instruments filed of record in Wilson County regarding this project. Even the cost of filing these should indicate a tax abatement is not needed. I'll get those to you. The notice of public hearing notice was inadequate. It includes property not leased to Clear Fork, property number that is reported that is inadequate. Furthermore, I maintain that construction is already begun on the project, which removes the option of abatement under Chapter 312 in Wilson County policy. A pad has been constructed adjacent to Highway 8797, and it appears that a large number of batteries or panels are stored at LV Crane on north of Stockdale on Highway 123. That's Clear Fork, for the benefit of Wilson County taxpayers who are suffering with property tax and have no abatement options. Thank you.
We have any other public comments regarding this agenda item?
Yes, Judge. It's coming along.
Good morning.
I'm Patty Worley, and I have to say, this came up a couple of years ago, and I've retired since then, so my memory was a little fuzzy, but a friend called me and told me my name was in the paper for this protest, and I thought, what the heck? I thought we killed that back then. I'd like to kill it again. I don't have it. I hope you can answer some questions. I hope they can answer some questions today. Like, where is that electricity going to go? Because the last time I heard it wasn't even going to go to our county. It was going to hire one person. I hear now it's going to hire all of 6. That's not a big amount of people to be hired for a tax abatement. I want a tax abatement. My land is included in that area that they're designating. Is that our land is designated as farmland? Has the zoning changed to put in this solar farm? I mean, just because it's a farm doesn't mean it's really a farm. Solar farm. Is the zoning going to change, and how's that going to affect me and my farm?
There is no zoning in the county, ma'am. So
Okay.
there is no zoning in the county. Just leave it
And there will be no zoning?
there. We cannot. We're not allowed by state law.
Okay, good, I'm glad. Worried about the wildlife habitat, because it will change. I'm worried about the rain and where the water will go, because that will change. I'm worried about what you're gonna do when you have to get rid of the solar, or replace the solar panels, because they have a lot of stuff in them that we don't want in the land. Thank you.
All right, do we have anybody else for public comment?
Good morning. My name is Todd Deaver. I'm superintendent at Stockdale ISD. Would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak today about an important project that promises to bring both immediate and long-term benefits to our county. I'm here to discuss a proposal for a new solar farm project with ties to Stockdale ISD, a project that has the potential to contribute to the future growth and prosperity of Wilson County, while also aligning with the goals for sustainability and economic development. And I'm going to stop there because I had this long speech written out with a lot of fluff in it. And I got to work this morning and I stopped and started scratching out some of the fluff. And I started highlighting the stuff that really mattered. And I'll answer the question about electricity, where does it go? You can't designate. There's a place down in Kyle Island that can designate where electricity goes. But when they create electricity, it gets poured into a river. If I take a 5-gallon bucket and pour in there, it gets dispersed all over the place. But this boils down to two things for the Commissioners Court. It allows for the students in this county to benefit. In Stockdale ISD, we could drastically, we need a fine arts building, we need rooms at the elementary. This would be an absolute game changer for Stockdale ISD. But the other thing that it does is it sends a message out to large companies. They don't have to come here. In order to do business with big companies, they are going to seek a reduction in their taxes. They're going to go play ball with someone else. And so what this does is it sends a message, once this gets approved, if it does, that other companies were willing to do business with them. It rolls out the red carpet. I might read this twice, but I hope once suffices. This proposal is not about giving up revenue. It is about strategically investing in the future of Wilson County. It's about attracting high-quality, sustainable businesses that will contribute to our community's prosperity for years to come. We are communicating a message that we are open for business. The potential benefits of this solar farm for Wilson County and Stockdale ISD are significant. This project has the potential to bring in substantial tax revenue that will help fund critical services in our county, including education. Specifically, Stockdale Independent School District could see increased funding, which could be used to improve facilities, offer more educational programs, and provide additional resources for our students. In conclusion, this solar farm project with the support of Enbridge represents a significant opportunity for Wilson County. It is a chance to invest in renewable energy, generate local revenue, and improve the overall quality of life for our community. The tax abatement proposal is a strategic step to ensure that this project is a success and that our county reaps the benefits for years to come. I encourage you all to support this proposal. It is an investment in our future, one that aligns with our shared values of sustainability, economic development, and responsible governance. Thank you.
Before you leave, sir, Stockdale ISD and Nixon Smiley CISD both enacted abatement zones in the year of 2022, correct?
We have 3 of them.
Okay.
Or had. One got
And they expired because those projects with those companies did not take place.
2 are still in place.
Okay. This, for the public, is dealing with a tax issue. The 312 and the 313 have to do with the way the tax code is written and the advantages that they're looking for. I just wanted to put that out there to the public.
Yes,
on that the schools had previously said, yes, we want this, but we timed out.
312 is still in place for entities such as yourselves. 313 got sunset, and the only thing they brought back was a JETI program, which is, it
Not
excludes
applicable
non-renewable
to
resources.
renewable
So
resources.
we don't have that 313 agreement in place. It would be a game changer for Stockdale ISD and roll out the red carpet for other businesses. And the other side benefit, it enables our infrastructure to increase in size. So thank you so much.
I have a list of the other speakers on. I did catch the names of the first 2 or 3. So is Patty Worley here?
She
You've already
spoke,
spoke. Okay.
and Mrs. Love spoke.
Right. D.R. Wortley?
That would be me, and I'm gonna pass.
Oh, all right. We already had Miss Love. Miss Gibby?
Yes. I have a handout.
Is it the same one?
It is the same one. It's just to refresh your memory.
Got it in my bag,
I prepared
but-
this thing 3
Thank you.
years ago. It hasn't really changed. Oh, there. Yes, I'm Karen Kibbe. I've been looking at, thank you for putting online the proposed agreement, because that was helpful in reviewing. And I'll read through these so that the rest of the world sees what they say, and then I'll discuss it if it's okay. I had 3 items that I thought any solar system ought to have to do in order to get a tax abatement. Contractual provision that makes it impossible to transfer the project or its area to a public entity, okay? Restrict project area and redevelopment zones, only those properties where there is a lease simple property rights. Require a setback from the property lines, say around 300 feet, with spring side screening to avoid overbearing their neighbors. Require that any wells be drilled properly licensed through Evergreen, and then require that any used water be retained and treated to TCQ standards. And then finally, if the access to the property is by county road, they get to pay the county for tearing up their roads. Okay. Now, I've compared this, I've talked with the county's attorney briefly. She had pointed me to a couple of provisions. And one, it appears that with the provisions you've got in this thing, the county can stop the transfer to anything other than one of the subsidiaries, and they're all for profit. So the problem of losing the tax dollars that you're hoping to gain by giving away some now disappears. Okay. They thought that it appeared to me at first that they had restricted the project area and redevelopment zone to only the properties they have leased, but we find out from Ms. Worley that that's evidently not the case. So they need to go back and make sure. This was a lot less than the first time we saw this a few years ago, okay? And so they need to either take that one out of their area before it actually gets approved or something. I talked to them about the setbacks, and they're using a very small percentage of the land that they will have under lease. So I think if we just put that in the contract that the setbacks occur, that would be pretty easy for all. They do not have the water rights, so they're not going to be drilling wells. That's a good thing, okay? The other thing has to do with with TCQ, and I'm not worried about them washing the water off of the top of the things, because that's dirt, okay? That's what falls on top of the solar panel. It's more has to do with what happens with the gear situations where you have petroleum products, and are you washing those off into eventually ending up in the waterways? Because this area does take in a couple of reservoirs, it takes in one of the creeks, and which eventually flows into the Ecleto, okay? And finally, it looks like they're going to be accessing this project through a federal highway, okay? So they probably, if they go down some county roads, they still need to pay the county for it, okay? Yes, this job doesn't produce nearly as many jobs as the whole 512 was originally designed to do. But there is if we can make sure these things all happen, then there is, yes, a long-term benefit to the county, okay? So I think it's a matter of maybe doing a little fine-tuning, a couple of minor points for them probably that could become major points in the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Donald, aye? Not to speak? All right, so now we move to agenda 3B, discuss and take action on the creation of the Clear Fork Creek Reinvestment Zone.
A question, Judge?
I believe Ms. Fernandez has a presentation for the court.
Yes.
Right.
Ms. Fernandez.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Blake Lee Fernandez. I'm with Bracewell, and I am working with the county to assess the application that you've received and prepare you for today's hearing. And so I've got a short presentation. I don't know if we're able to get that up, but I'm going to pass out some hard copies.
This morning. That I emailed this morning.
And so before we begin, Ms. Fernandez, I want to be clear to the community here. This is not a hearing to approve an abatement claim.
That's right. It's a two-step process. So the first consideration that the county would take is creating a reinvestment posted a draft abatement agreement on your website, and given notice to all of the presiding officers of the jurisdictions over this site, of the public hearing. We're gonna update that date because, we keep this posted, the abatement agreement posted for 30 days. That'll come up before the county on July 14th. That's a separate question, and it's taken completely independently of creating the reinvestment zone. The reinvestment zone on its own doesn't have any authority or obligation to the county. So you'll see the map of the proposed zone here on the screen. It is difficult to read because it's a long map instead of a wide map. But it's west of the city of Nixon. It's split the north side and the south side by US 87 East. On the eastern side, you've got County Road 483, and on the western side, County Road 458. 458 is a little further to the west. So that gives you the kind of general sense of the site that we're talking about. Any area within municipalities has been carved out. The county reinvestment zones don't cover any city land, and so that's a little bit why you see some of the carve-outs in the map. Okay, the next slide, please. The county received an application on February 19th of this year. This is a new application from Clear Fork Creek Solar LLC. There's a new developer purchased that entity, so this is completely different than the application by the same name that you received some years ago. That application, the prior one did have a battery storage component to it. That's the BESS that somebody mentioned in their public comments. That's not part of this application. So this is a new entity, even though the project is of the same name. On April 30th, the application was amended, and then on May 15th, we got an amended map. That's the one that was attached. On May 12th, the county approved a development agreement to pursue the project. That ensures that the developer covers the cost to the county of distributing notices, publications, and it pays for the legal fees. So the county is not out any money in analyzing and considering this application. And then on May 19th, the county judge found the application to be complete and provided notices to all of the commissioners and the presiding officers of the surrounding jurisdictions. And so that brings us to today. Next slide, please. This is the public hearing on creating the reinvestment zone. Notice was published. The landowners were identified by parcel and name. If there is something incorrect on this list, then we can certainly change that in the abatement agreement. But I think we'd asked everyone to confirm that this was the correct list of parcels. But if we need to make a correction, we can do that before an abatement agreement is entered into. It wouldn't change the site of the zone, but it would limit the site of the project. All right, next slide, please. So the public hearing today, there are 4 items that the county is charged under statute with considering. The first is whether the improvements sought within the proposed zone are feasible and practical, whether the improvements sought within the proposed zone will be a benefit to the land, including the zone, and to the county after the expiration of any tax abatement agreement, whether the proposed zone would contribute to the retention or expansion of primary employment in the county, and whether the proposed zone would attract major investment in the zone. The county adopted an economic development policy and then a solar amendment to that policy. The solar amendment has required criteria, and that's stated here. This project meets these criteria. All right, next slide, please. So the proposal for the Clear Fork Creek Solar LLC project, it'll be on 6,100 acres. That's the total acres. The project's not gonna take that whole span. North and south of State Highway 87. It's for a 600 megawatt photovoltaic power generation facility. Estimated investment of $800 million. 6 full-time jobs, and the developers agreed to salaries beginning at $70,000 a year per job with full benefits, and an estimated 600 construction jobs. All right, and the final slide. This will all be included in the abatement agreement, but for purposes of considering some of the criteria, I think it's helpful to walk through this today. So the area in blue shows the construction period. That's 2025 through 2027. During that time, the developer will pay the standard taxes at your tax rate. The area in green, this is the 10-year proposed abatement period. And during that time, the developer would pay a $600,000 payment each year. That is a pilot payment, again, the payment in lieu of taxation. What we do is the county would abate 100% of their taxes in exchange for getting this pilot payment back. Then you can see over on the right, there are taxes already on these properties from before the abatement. Right now, assuming that there's no change in your tax rate, so everything's stagnant, it's $581,660. So you see in the far right column what the total payment to the county would be under this structure. During the term of the abatement period, it would be $1,181,660. And then beginning in 2038, that's at the end of that green highlighted period, the end of the abatement period, you see that the county again is taxed at, is going to receive its taxes at the ordinary rate. But by then, the property will have depreciated, so its valuation would be down to $160 million. And so you'll see that the county tax rate will be a little bit higher than the abatement rate at that time. So the average abatement under this structure, effective abatement, ends up being about 68%. And then the next step would be to consider the tax abatement agreement. Again, that would happen in July. We've got lots of time for the public to take a look at the agreement. It's posted on your website under public notices, so that they are well educated on it when we come back and consider that. You've got representatives from the developer here, if you want to hear from them, and they can answer questions you have about the project or feasibility, et cetera.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Report, Representative.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Commissioners, for your time today for considering the reinvestment zone for Project Clear Fork Creek. Enbridge is the entity that would be developing this project. First and foremost, we really appreciate everyone's time and efforts to investigate this opportunity for the county. We think that there's going to be a great opportunity to implement this project here if we're successful in securing a tax abatement agreement. This particular project would require tax abatement in order to get the final approval from the Enbridge Board of Directors. And so just to be clear, there was talk earlier about the previous entities who were looking to implement this project had Chapter 313 agreements in place. Those have since expired. Essentially, the only entity that we can work with at this point in time is the county to secure a 312 agreement. So that agreement would be needed in order to move the project forward. So just some highlights were already provided on the project. It would be an $800 million capital investment. It would create 600 construction jobs, temporary construction jobs that would last about 18 to 24 months during construction. Full-time jobs would be about 6 to 7 jobs full-time, and the company would be interested in hiring those jobs locally. Also, from an economic impact standpoint, our analysis shows that this project, over the life of the project, would create about 154 jobs, indirect and induced jobs, long-term. So this would come through service providers, maintenance providers to the project, to maintain the equipment on the site, but also to manage the vegetation on the site. So there's a lot of opportunities for local contractors and service providers to benefit from this project. Overall, this project would generate about $160 million in property tax revenues for all 10 taxing jurisdictions, including Stockdale ISD and Nixon-Smiley ISD, and of course for Wilson County. And also this would contribute about over $4 billion increase to the state GDP. So significant investment. As it currently stands, this solar project is one of the largest, if not the largest, solar project being developed in the state of Texas right now. It would offer Wilson County an opportunity to really be its own source of power generation, to really significantly enhance your local infrastructure, and really put Wilson County on a map to be in a position to attract even larger mission-critical projects that are looking for advanced, robust infrastructure. What we're seeing as a site selection firm right now in Texas specifically is we represent a lot of advanced manufacturers, a lot of data center operators, and they're only looking at site locations in counties and regions that have proactively built out their power infrastructure and have power available for these large energy-intensive facilities. So we believe that Wilson County will really be putting itself on the map by partnering with Enbridge and helping this project come to fruition. One other important point we wanted to emphasize is that, there are several, as was mentioned, several previous entities were trying to deploy this project. They either didn't have the financial resources, the engineering talent, or the project management talent to deploy a project of this scale. But Enbridge does. Enbridge is a long-time diversified energy infrastructure company, operate oil and gas pipelines all across North America. They also are successful in implementing renewable energy projects of this scale. They have over 13 renewable energy projects under operations as it currently stands, about 2 gigawatts of solar projects under operation. They know how to do projects at this scale. They intend to be a long-term owner-operator of this project. They want to be tied in with the community. They want to support community initiatives. They want to hire locally. This is really Enbridge's objective by deploying this project in Wilson County. As was mentioned, each of the taxing jurisdictions would benefit tremendously from a property tax impact standpoint. The over 6,000 acres that are under consideration for this project currently have ag exemptions in place. The total appraised value of the 6,000 acres is approximately $750,000, and that's with the ag exemption in place. That ag exempted land produces only about $23,000 a year in property tax revenues. By switching the site from ag to commercial use, all of a sudden the property tax revenues increase to about $350,000 a year. And Enbridge, if this project moves forward, would have to pay rollback taxes over the previous 3 years, so they'd have to pay $350,000 to recoup some of that ag exempted land property tax revenue. And then once the project is implemented, this project would, during construction, generate about $1.8 million the first year of construction, about $5.4 million the second year of construction, and then the first year of operations, this project would generate over $12.5 million in property tax revenue. So just an exponential increase in property tax revenues that this project would bring to the county and to all the taxing jurisdictions. The school districts also mentioned the impact of both school districts. For example, Stockdale ISD, over the 40-year useful life of this project, would see about over $40 million in property tax revenues generated. Some of that could be subject to recapture, but only on the M&O portion of the rate. They would keep 100% of the INS portion of the rate, which goes towards paying down school bonds, issuing new bonds, paying down debt. Extremely useful for school districts. Similar with Nixon Smiley, this project would generate about $60 million in property tax revenue over the 40-year useful life of the project. So just tremendous opportunity here to partner with the community in trying to see this project come to fruition. Another important point here is that there is competitive pressure from the market. So in many different forms. First of all, we all are seeing what's happening at the federal level, where potentially some of the tax credits that previously supported renewable energy could be going away. Also, there's local competitive pressure here in the market. Next door in DeWitt County, there's another entity looking to build a similar size project that wants to tie into the same transmission line. If Enbridge can get approved for tax abatement first and get their project interconnected first, then they would have priority on the Elm Creek 345 kV line. So there's a huge opportunity here for Wilson County to really win the project for the region, to add significant power generation resources to the region, and also to really be in the driver's seat when it comes to your future economic development future. So I just wanted all of you to consider those points in making your decision on the reinvestment zone today. Again, we do have representatives from Enbridge as well that would like to share a few words, if you don't mind. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. My name is Tim Deal, and I'm the Director of Power Project Development for Enbridge. And thank you for considering this. As Jose alluded to, we have a 75-year history overall, 20 in power projects, of being a good neighbor to and investing in the communities that we're in. About 30% of the crude oil and 20% of natural gas in the United States flows through our pipelines. We're not going anywhere. And we have 12,000 employees and 3,500 just in Texas. So again, we are here to be the long-term neighbor and partner, and we look forward to just being a good neighbor and investing in the community.
Before you leave,
We got some.
I got a question.
go ahead.
What is a photovoltaic power generation facility?
Solar panels,
All solar panels, no wind?
no wind. You may be thinking of, it was alluded to earlier, one of the landowners who put a portion of the land into the project on a different portion of the land signed a wind lease. Separate conversation whether we think there's enough wind resource for that to even happen, but that's in no way connected to us.
This will be the batteries in the,
No batteries in this project.
Strictly solar panels.
strictly solar? Okay. Thank you.
So, before you leave the podium, something that was addressed in February that hasn't been told to the people here is about potential secondary customers. And I think that they need to know what the domino effect could be.
Yeah, so as the superintendent alluded to, the way electrons work is you're dumping them into a pipeline, and wherever they get pulled down is where they go. You can't tell an electron where to go. But as you put these electrons onto the grid, you have customers simultaneously eyeing the electrons, so to speak, to pull them off somewhere else. And so the customer for this project, not yet at liberty to say who it is, but it's a name you will all know. Very large company, and there's a good possibility of, as these guys have an opportunity to be here, there could be follow-on industry that could be an opportunity. It could result in significant investment and jobs.
I have a question for you, sir. Out of the 6,000 acres, maybe Jose can answer, how many of those are private leases? Out of the 6,000 acres that y'all have?
The entire project is leased.
None of that was bought by y'all? That's not
Not by
an
us.
older ranch that was there?
We do not own anything. There's a group that did buy some land for the purpose of leasing it to us.
Okay, so it's all leased.
It's all leases for us. We do not, as someone else alluded to, we don't own any of the mineral or the water rights.
And okay, so you're in oil and gas as well, correct? So there was some concern of where the electricity goes to? You heard some concerns, right?
About where it goes to, yeah.
Yeah, okay. You realize we have a huge oil field project going on next door. We have some coming here. Does that oil and gas stay there, or does it ship someplace else for?
The oil and gas, it goes to pipelines or trucks.
Just trying to clarify that part of it, because that's not, it goes elsewhere to be refined, correct?
Yes, sir.
Also, is there any guarantee you're not gonna sell to a governmental corporation like CPS Energy, then they won't have to pay this abatement?
We are, no.
They won't have to agree to the abatement, I'm sorry.
No, we will not be selling to them. That's not the contemplated customer.
Okay.
It is their line. They own the 345 kV line that the project would tap into, so we do have to interact with them, and we're putting the power on their line.
So how would that be built into a contract, or could that be built into a contract, Ms. Hernandez, that most, if not all, the employees for this project would come from this county?
So if you look across the span of the projects that we have, what's most efficient for just about any project is to have employees that are from the communities and that don't have to drive long distances. No one wants to do that. So we tend to hire local people. And one other thing about, we mentioned the 6 full-time jobs. Yes, the solar projects are pretty quiet neighbors, and there's not a whole lot to do, but one of the things we're exploring, not able to commit to at this time, is vegetation management using sheep. That would involve, should that come to fruition, that would involve additional people and some economic activity there.
Ms. Fernandez, did you want to say something there? Go on.
On your question, with regard to the assignment, we've got that in the draft agreement, that the county would have to approve any assignment of the project other
I've spent the last 20 years of my career in the upstream and midstream oil and gas sector. So coming over to Enbridge and being part of a company that also has a power generation business unit that I'm in, it's been a great transition to see how these two industries interact with one another. So Enbridge being the root of its business, being in the transportation and distribution of oil and natural gas, it's really neat to see how these two entities kind of meld together with power generation and oil and gas infrastructure. And to that point, a couple things I wanted to mention on that is that in the design of our layout, we have added ample infrastructure for set-asides for oil and gas development if needed. And as Tim mentioned, we have a kind of a livestock component as well. We hope to have some sheep running on the property as well to clean it up and to keep maintained. So not really much to add to what's already been said. I know that we've really appreciated the ISDs for having their support. With our application, we also put a couple letters of support in there from them. So it's great to have both of those representation from both ISDs here today. Happy also in the application I wanted to address to Ms. Worley, that is an omission, that's an error. It was county PID was accidentally put in there, so we are not putting the Worley tract into the reinvestment zone. All the ownership in the tracts are private, so we're happy to put anything in the contract that would prevent it being transferred to CPS. So, and we've also redesigned the project, as been mentioned, to use the highway for entry, ingress, and egress. So we hope to alleviate any concerns there with county road heavy usage during construction. We're directing all of our construction efforts to use the entrances on the highway to construct the facility. So we hope that is well received for any congestion issues. So I don't really have anything to add. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Commissioners?
Not on that. During your slide presentation, you had the 100% abatement with annual pilot payments. Want to let the public know that negotiations are ongoing, and this was just an example and is not necessarily a set number.
Yes, and in fact, the presentation covered the fact that the abatement application had been updated, and unfortunately, I put the original proposal in there. So the updated numbers are for the first 5 years, the developer would pay $825,000, and then for the next 5 years, $850,000. And so that's significantly higher. It reduces the effective abatement down to 50%. So my apologies for putting that wrong slide in there.
Commissioners, any other comments?
I'm trying to think of everybody who spoke. So, I mean, y'all are going to make sure that at the end of the day, and I mean, this is kind of premature, but we need to do it now because we had the public here, that if you need to pull somebody out of this, you can take their property out of it. And
Yes.
we value personal property rights to be the highest of our liberties.
Yes. Yeah, we'll immediately have that removed from the, and apologies for that, it was just an error. I'm sorry about that. That's my fault. I actually pulled together the PIDs for it, so that was my error. And I would also add that, Tim alluded to this, but the company has been in existence for 75 years. Our power generation unit has been around for 20. We immediately, in any project that we evaluate to acquire, to invest in and build out and develop, we immediately look for incentives from local, state authorities. And same thing for this one. When this came across our desk to evaluate, we immediately looked to see if there's an abatement there, because we see that as an open invitation to explore business opportunities within the county. So from a finance standpoint, we're financing this with 100% of our own cash flow. And as we've submitted, it's over $800 million in investment that will come out of the company's cash flow. So that's a lot of money. The lion's share of that will be in the first couple of years during construction. So to mitigate and de-risk any of these projects that increase the viability of them, we look for these type of abatements. It's immensely important to the viability of this project. So we very much look forward to working with you all and hope that you will approve the abatement and the investment zone for today and then abatement later. We think it's a great thing. As go to our website and look, you can see all the pipelines and all the projects that we have all around the country, but in that same drop-down, you can see the vast number of little dots on the map that show our community investments and community engagement projects. So in the communities that we operate in, we heavily invest in those as well. So the company has a really strong track record of investing in the communities that it operates in. So, and as an employee of the company, I can tell you that the benefits of working for the company are great. It's not just a job, it's a career that they provide. So the jobs that will be here and provided for are really strong careers that benefit the whole family. The benefits of the company are great to work for. So that's all I have for today. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Commissioners, any other questions?
Yeah, so, and I'm not sure which one of y'all, I know Ms. Hernandez, last time I asked about a tax analysis. And I guess it was committed to that somebody was going to do that. So when will we get that? Because what I would like to see is a comparison between what our taxes, our citizens' taxes would be without the project and then with the project to at least 5 years after the termination of the 10-year agreement, if that's truly what it's going to be, a 10-year agreement.
Certainly, yeah, with the revised, we can update the application
Yeah.
to remove the tracking.
And just, yeah.
Include that data.
Yeah, and you know, I don't mind if you assume that the tax rate stays the same. I think it's realistic to make some adjustments going forward. I mean, and I realize it's aggressive. None of us would be here today. We'd be doing something else if we could estimate what taxes are going to be or whatever 5 years from now. So that is something that's important. I would like to see that, and I'd like to see that published so people can see what impact it may have to them and what impact it may have if the project's not done. I'm primarily interested in what happens at that transition period at the end of the 10 years. And that's why I'd like to see it extend 5 years past the term or the end of the abatement.
Commissioners? All right, we have an action item on 3B. And we want to make a motion.
Judge, may I suggest that the motion correct the error in the publication so that we would remove the Worley property from the reinvestment zone, just so that that's clear today?
Okay.
You want a separate motion or in the same motion?
I think we can do it as one motion, just with the correction. Thank you.
I saw it in there before. Where'd it go?
Your motion.
Looking for it, Judge, on, I don't think we have something that exactly says how to word it. I'm looking at the notice. Looking at the actual notice, I'm looking at
I think the motion would be to create the Clear Fork Creek Solar Reinvestment Zone as corrected by the court to remove the Worley property.
So, we got his property number, so we would drop 59148, which is Dennis and Patty Worley. All right, this is gonna take a little while. Make a motion that we take and adopt.
You have to bring your speaker up a little bit closer.
Okay. The words keep getting smaller and smaller over the years. Or we want to start off with pursuant to chapter 312. What do you think is best, Evan? Pursuant to chapter 312 of the Texas Tax Code, I make a motion that we adopt a designation zone in Wilson County, more particularly described in public records as Wilson County Appraisal District parcel ID numbers 14614 Harvey, Robert Earl IV, and Jeffrey, 16109 Harvey, Robert Earl IV, and Jeffrey, 15567 Huell, John Burr Jr., 15347 Barnes, Sandra K., trustee, 18016, Dunn, Jack L. and Mills, Jimmy L. 18009, Dunn, J. L. and Mills, Jimmy Lou D. 18010, Dunn, J. L. and Mills, Jimmy Lou D. 60937, Flo, Fred A. and Gregory N. 15513, Tally, John M. and Beverly R. 18015, Tally, Toby B. and Christy W. 18014, Tally, Toby B. and Christy W. 63279, Cluck Ranch Incorporated. 15511, Tally, Toby B. and Christy W. 16652, Cluck Ranch Incorporated. 63352, Cluck, David Mark. 76495, David Mark Cluck Family LTD Partnership. 17305, Huel John Bird Jr. 16678, MCCM Land Partners LTD. 15322, Solar Pro Land Investments LLC. 39136, Sheffield Ranch Limited, purchased by Renua Inc.
You can include the language in there about work.
Oh, well, he didn't read that name, yeah.
Okay.
Could what, sir?
Well, we're gonna include the wording on worthy.
No, I dropped her out. I dropped their property out.
It's a circuit breaker, I'm telling you, I keep back looking at her, and she had the wording, I was sorry for her. Okay, so what is that's your motion?
That we adopt those for the abatement zone.
Reinvestment.
Reinvestment zone. I'm looking for it in writing, and like I said, the words are really small.
Ms. Fernandez, that's
In the
suffice
reinvestment
for
zone. Make sure I do it legally.
Yes,
property?
he read it in without
Okay,
including
very
that.
good.
That
Okay.
is-
Did he need to name the reinvestment zone?
It should be
Solar Creek,
the Clear Fork.
Clear Fork Solar
Investment
Creek
Zone.
LLC reinvestment zone.
Yes, sir.
Second. Yeah, now we'll stop all that.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Atkins, second by Commissioner Martin. Do we have any other discussion on 3B? Hearing none, I'm gonna call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, motion passes. And now, we are ending this public hearing at 9:51 a.m. And we are now going into regular commissioner report session.
I'd like to thank everybody from the public
Yeah.
that came today, and
Yes.
I'd like to thank our presenters. We appreciate your interaction and coming to court and being involved.
Move to agenda item number 4. Do we have any public comments for general commissioner report? None? All right. Agenda item number 5, we have certificates of completion, awards, and bond continuation.
I think I need it written out next time.
I'm glad it was you, not me.
That I can read, the other stuff is too small.
All right, for the minutes, we have a continuation certificate for court clerk AP4 County Wilson for LC Barreto. And I think that's it. We moved to agenda item number 6, our extension activity report. So we have somebody to give it.
Good morning, everybody. So y'all are in for a treat today. Instead of doing just our regular paper activity reports, we decided to do a photo activity report and show y'all some of the projects and activities that we've been doing for the past few months. So, I'm gonna start off with, so I get to go first. I had the really unique opportunity to go to University of Georgia's extension program. They are our research leaders in food preservation. So we got to do a lot of fun activities with them and learn about how our food is preserved and how we can teach our community how to hosted the Early Childhood Education Conference. We did this in Guadalupe County, where we had about 40 early childhood educators come. These are the folks that are in our daycares. So they have to get so many CEUs every year to be able to care for our earliest children, our youngest ones. Cooking Well with Diabetes. This is a program that I teach the community not only how to properly care for themselves that have diabetes, but also different cooking techniques and recipes I share with them. And also Matter of Balance. I partnered with Conviva, and my Master Wellness volunteer led the Matter of Balance classes over there. It teaches older adults how to help not to fall and how to stay strong and physically active. Distracted Driving at Lavernia High School. This is one of my favorite programs that I do with Lavernia every year. We get to go out and talk to the senior class right before prom about not texting and driving, not drinking and driving, being responsible while you're driving. I partner with TxDOT, obviously AgriLife Extension, my specialist there, the school, and our district attorney's office to put this program on. It's lots of fun. And then Battleground to Breaking Ground is a program that Samantha and I both helped with, and this is through AgriLife's AgriBility, where they teach either retirees or veterans from getting off the battleground, from retiring from the military to farming and ranching. And then we had Dr. Rick Avery, the director of Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, come visit our office, which I've been here 10 years and we have never had a director come visit us. So we're really excited to have him here and share what we've been doing in our county with him. So also he's super tall. Like the peanut out there, I was like, okay. It was fun. Samantha.
All right, so in the spring, we did our Ag Producer Workshop, which follows our soil sample campaign that we do with Farm Bureau and Soil and Water Conservation. So like I said, that's just a snippet of our spring Ag Producer Workshop. We had Carl Harworth come in and give an update on kind of preparing for a drought, which we know we're in. So what other techniques can we use for our livestock and kind of going from there. Okay. Site visits. This was a fun one. I actually drug Allison with me to go with me, and we met with older sisters and just kind of they're trying to go back to some natives in their property and weren't real sure the best way to go about it. So we took some pictures, had some good conversations, and hopefully have them on the right track to getting some natives back in their property. We did walk a couple miles. At the end of April, I had the opportunity to attend a national conference on forages in the southern part. I especially enjoyed just hearing what other universities are doing in their forage programs. It kind of gave some insight of different conversations we can be having with producers as it comes to, what we're doing and whatnot. Plus the technology. I mean, that's a drone at the bottom, and that was there at the research lab in Corpus, and they're using it to go over the fields, and scouting techniques and things like that. So that was a really neat opportunity there. For our professional development, the Texas County Agricultural Agents Association, we went to Bandera to Sovereignty Ranch, and it was all about, again, the restorative ag or regenerative ag. And so that was a neat experience. The owner was actually from California, came over, and is doing when I say everything, I mean everything by hand. She's got some rows of corn, and they were just put goats in the pen and put goats down the rows of corn to maintain. They weren't spraying anything. So it sounds odd.
have a rabies clinic with Decent Animal Hospital. That partnership actually started in the early 90s, and we still do it, which is really awesome. We also had this past March 4-H Day at the Capitol, so those 5 kids attended where they got to go tour Ryan Dean's office, got a picture with Juju Zaffarini, so they get to kind of see the whole Capitol and try not to get lost. So in our spring contests, we had 5 different contests that youth competed in, so it was a total of 90 participants, which 62 of those are our small bore indoor rifle kiddos, because that's their season is this spring. Some more from the spring contest. And then this past week in College Station was our state contest, and so I have some guest speakers to talk as well who competed. But we had youth competed about 6 different contests, and so I'm gonna let them kind of talk about what they did.
Hello, I'm Joshua Scribner. I'm a senior 4-H member, just graduated from Stockdale High School. So this week we went to College Station. I started the week with FCH Quiz Bowl. We didn't do as well as we could, but I won't be back, but hopefully they'll come back and do a better job. Then I did entomology. We were the first place team in the state. I was second. Ben Brown was third. Connor Hayaski was fourth, and Monroe McGuffin was fifth. So we absolutely dominated in that. And then the next day, I stayed an extra day to receive a 4-H Foundation scholarship. I was one of 4 members in our county. I received the $20,000 from Houston, and that is what I did. Now to whoever's next.
Congratulations.
Hi, my name's Peyton Keller, and I was part of the rifle team for 4-H, and we went to Victoria to compete for state, and then I was also I went to give an educational presentation about horses in A&M, and it was a wonderful experience. It was new to me because this is my first year for both of them to go to state, and there was a lot of great presentations, and I learned more. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sean Dukas. I'm from the Stockdale 4-H Club. I competed in the educational presentation contest as well. My presentation got 11th in the animal science category. I also went to the college fair at the state roundup, and I spoke to many representatives from many schools, and I also did the community service there as well.
It's a long week, but it's very action-packed, so we're all glad to be home.
What's tomorrow? What do we have tomorrow? I see it on the
Tomorrow
screen.
is Star Award interviews, 8:45.
All of us have to be.
I'm glad you.
Yeah,
I know my calendar was gonna
I'll
pop up at
volunteer
some
all over.
point and tell me, but
No, it's Commissioner and I are, everyone, okay.
Yes, yes, at the,
Extension Center.
yes, the classrooms, yeah. We get done at like 1:32, but we give you lunch and breakfast and coffee. So.
you're putting us in the same room together again?
Yes, no, actually it'll be separate.
And then Wednesday night, right?
Wednesday night, Samantha, that's, she just want me to remind y'all.
Okay.
So today is the new screwworm, today is the new world screwworm, educational presentation where they're gonna have our specialist teams in. It'll be over at the Expo Center. Starts at 2? Yep, starts at 2. And then Wednesday night is tree talks. Learn all about trees.
Where's that gonna be?
Expo.
At the,
So then in terms, this past spring is really hectic with youth development in the classrooms. So our first one we did was hatching butterflies with 2nd grade at Floresville North. That's a newer program we did, and so it was a big hit so far. So, and then our hatching in the classroom program grew due to our Farm Bureau Clover Cash grant. So different schools, so Stockdale and Lavernia Ag shops. We did ducks as well at one of them, so 5 for 5 hatch rate, which was great. And then as well as Pope, Floresville North, Stockdale first grades, and then we did Pirate Academy and Pope as well. So in total, it was about 330 kiddos that got to hatch chicks. And then lastly was our Water Fest that we do with the San Antonio River Authority. We did those with Pope, Stockdale, and Lavernia. That is all third graders. And so we have them come out to Hilton Park, and they get to do all types of different activities about water conservation, water cycle. They get to touch marine life. So in total, that was about 460 kids that we got to educate. So, yeah. And that's what we have. Thank you.
I'm going to go back to the TxDOT simulator. You said that you were active with Lavernia. Y'all looking to move that to Floresville, Stockdale, Pope?
Yes, we try to get into all the schools. Timing doesn't always work out.
You turn around, that man right there will be able to make the time happen. Stockdale ISD.
Yes.
Got it in my phone.
Okay. We would love to. It's a great opportunity. It really, I don't want to say we scare the kids, but we try to scare the kids so that they are paying attention and they make good choices. So, yeah. Anyone else?
Questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. And normally y'all get out of here in the first 15 minutes of the meeting. Sorry about that.
But you know what? We're counting this as professional development because we learned a lot about the solar panels. Just saying. I didn't know.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and it's good education for the kids. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Agenda item number 7, discuss and take action on allowing the move of the Tyner House in Southern Springs to the county-owned acreage located across the baseball field in Southern Springs. We have a presentation by Ms. Tamara Reed and Ms. Melinda Green.
Good morning, I'm Dr. Melinda Creech, and I am associated with the Wilson County Historical Society and a commissioner on the Wilson County Historical Commission and on the board of the Sutherland Springs Historical Museum. And good morning, Judge and commissioners. And I'd like to thank you so much for allowing me to talk to you this morning about the preservation of the Tyner Hendricks House in Sutherland Springs. Slide. The Tyner House is currently owned by Chris Kaler, and he wants to build a home on the property, and he's interested in the removal and preservation of the house. He has given us until the end of the year to secure a site to which to move the house and to secure the funds for moving the house before he proceeds with the demolition. And there are 4 slides I think you can scroll through that show the condition of the house right now. Another. And maybe one more. Okay. And then this Google map, the next slide please, shows the location of the Tyner House and the location of the county lot that we hope to move it to. If you can see that on the slide, I think you have it as a handout too. And here's a county appraisal district map, also if that helps for you to locate where it is in Sutherland Springs. Next slide. Here's a little history of the house. It was built in 1886 by Jesse L. Tyner. He married Connolly Polly Henderson in 1879, granddaughter of J.H. and Mary Bailey Polly. And this is their wedding picture, but I don't think we got that one into this slide. Could you go to the next one? Okay. So I found a wedding picture of them too that was in the presentation that didn't get in there. But the Tyners, who were some of the original settlers in Lavernia, bought the property from Jack Sutherland, and they lived in the little house at the back. Can you go back to the slide before that one? The little house at the back while they were constructing the bigger house. So that little house is actually even older than the bigger house. One of the features, next slide, associated with the house is J.L. Tyner's diary, which was written between 1886 and 1888. A transcript of this diary is owned by the Sutherland Springs Historical Museum. It records the building of the house, who helped to build it, where he got the diary also recounts the day-to-day life in Wilson County during those years, the weather, agriculture, politics, community life. It's just a treasure trove. And I would like to read his entry for June the 9th, this day in 1886. Self, that's how he refers to himself. Self commenced plowing out my young cut of corn in the Mrs. Johnson's old field at dinner. I hired Nat Henderson and Jess Wilson, colored, to plow. Nat furnishes his plowing team and works at $1.50 per day. Jess Wilson at 75 cents per day, and my team will plow. Brother Frank returned from the district court at Floresville this evening as a witness in the Joe Blair case for intent to murder case. Case was dismissed by the prosecuting attorney, Thomas H. Spooner. Brother Frank got a cash loan of $5 for his expense at the district court. I will seed oats for the debt when he has them threshed this fall. James Gray of Lodi was convicted of murder in the second degree and given 7 years in the penitentiary. The case was appealed. He killed an old Mexican last fall at his Gray's store. Sandy Mitchell is still sick and unable to work and has been since last Friday morning. Grass is starting off nice since the fine rain on the 6th of June on Sunday. So the whole diary is for 3 years is filled with all kinds of details about that. On October the 28th, last year, Jesus Nehar from Preservation, Texas, visited the Tyner house with Keith Michalek and I. After looking over the house carefully and documenting everything with photos, he said, "It is truly a piece of history that we believe deserves preservation." Preservation, Texas, posted photos of the Tyner house on their Instagram. Next slide. We began to think about the sites for the relocation of the house, and there were several possibilities. The Polly property was one possibility, but at this time it did not seem a reasonable plan for the Michaleks. The Tyner house does have a connection to the Pollys. Mrs. Tyner's wife, Connie, was the granddaughter of the Pollys. And the diary actually recounts the death of Mary Bailey Polly. On the vacant lot across from the Sutherland Springs Museum was also another consideration. This lot is owned by a physician in San Antonio, and however, purchasing the land on major thoroughfares seemed financially out of the question. So we saw that the lot across from the ball fields in Sutherland Springs was owned by Wilson County, and it's vacant. And it would only require moving the house a few blocks and would be less complicated. It would also keep the house a part of the Sutherland Springs community. Next slide. And here's a bit of history of the lot. It was, of course, first owned by Alejandro Trevino, who sold the land to John Sutherland. After Mr. Sutherland died, it passed through several hands, including Jesse S. Wilson, who worked for Mr. Tyner, who we mentioned in the diary there, who was the president of the Sutherland Springs Colored School in 1899. On August the 1st, 1878, Bessie Fields sold her lot to her niece, Othello Brooks. And on June the 5th, 1879, Othello Brooks sold the lot to the Sutherland Springs Community Civic Club. On April the 28th, 1981, the trustees of the unincorporated Sutherland Springs Community Park sold the lot to Wilson County. Next slide. Preservation Texas recommended the Dodson Moving Company from Livonia. They visited the site and sent a report stating that the house was structurally sound and could be moved without disassembling the 2 stories. The front porch, which is pretty rotten, would have to be rebuilt. The estimate of the total cost of the move would be $195,600. Since then, the Tyner Hendricks house has been listed by Preservation Texas on its 2025 list of most endangered places in Texas, which gives it some notoriety. Wilson County Historical Society has pledged $50,000 towards the moving of the house. The Texas Historical Commission has several grants and funding possibilities that we're exploring, including Texas Preservation Trust Fund grant program and we're beginning to have conversation with the Conservation Society of San Antonio. The Poly Association, which has many connections to the Tyner family, are publicizing the funding needs of the Tyner House in their newsletter. Next slide. The location of the building is significant because it is centrally located to provide a focus for the museums along the sea below. Those museums in Lavernia, Sutherland Springs, and Stockdale, along with the Jailhouse Museum in Floresville, have already begun discussions about cooperating on a plan to promote heritage tourism, focusing on the museums in Wilson County. The Tyner House connects all three museums along the sea below. The Tyners were originally from Lavernia, and then they moved and became a part of the community at Sutherland Springs. And after the Tyners sold the house and moved to Uvalde, the Hendricks and Hodge family from Stockdale bought the house. The relocation of the house to the county lot in Sutherland Springs is also significant because that was the location of a historic two-story black school built in 1899, described as the handsomest building in Sutherland Springs in an 1899 newspaper article. In 1903, the Stevenson's Colony Sutherland Springs Common School number 9 had an enrollment of 110 black students. If you're interested in learning more about some of these stories, you can read the blogs that I've written. There are a couple of them there, QR codes to get to them. Wilson County already has a treasure in the Polly Whitehall Mansion built in the 1840s, and the Wilson County Historical Society manages the DeWeese Grimshaw House built in the 1860s. The Tyner House would provide us with a historic home built in the 1880s, and that would be an amazing collection of historic houses for such a small county. We are still brainstorming about the uses for the house. Some thoughts are exhibits related to the history of Wilson County and the surrounding area, gatherings of all sorts, family reunions, clubs, school reunions, cemetery societies, etc., and research-related events, genealogy seminars, story gathering days, Native American history preservation conferences, Black history presentation, SACAM, which is the San Antonio African American Community Archive and Museum in San Antonio. They're interested in having a place to do digital recording project they're already involved in Wilson County. Texian history presentations, field schools from the University of Texas Architectural History class. I'm in conversation with Dr. Tara Dudley from there about having a field school at the house. And I am meeting tomorrow night with the Sutherland Springs Community Association to gather more information and share ideas about the uses for the building. So our next steps are to confirm this relocation site, enlist partners and establish a group of interested people, determine the purposes of the building, secure funding, relocate the Tyner Hendricks house and restore the Tyner Hendricks house, and tell all the stories. Are there any questions from you?
Yes. Is the small house in the back going to stay, is it going to be moved with the two-story?
It's going to be moved as well. They said that they could move it as well. There are there are three chimneys. One of them is modern. We don't care about that one. But they will try to move, they'll have to deconstruct those two chimneys, but they would move the two chimneys too. Some of those stones, we think, may have been a part of the Rancho de Paisle, which was the mission ranch for the Concepcion Mission in San Antonio, which was located, we think, very near to the site. And so some of those big red stones may have been gathered by the Sutherlands to make the chimney for their little house.
I saw a very close similarity to those stones there at the Tyner house to the Polly house as well.
Yeah, and they've been used kind of all around the area, but we're hoping that, some investigation could be made into those stones too, to see.
Okay.
Dr. Creek, have you raised any money yet for the move on it?
Pardon?
Have you all raised any money already for the move?
The Wilson County Historical Society has dedicated $50,000 towards the move.
And it's going to cost right at $200,000 to move it?
Yeah, 195, yeah, 600.
I have a question for,
And that includes building the foundation for the house and all that stuff too. I mean,
I think there's gonna have to be some dirt work done as well. That is on a pretty good incline there,
Right.
so.
the Dodson Moving Company looked at the site that we were thinking of, so they, had that in mind maybe when they were coming up with that figure.
I would be very interested in to see some markings or flagging of where y'all are thinking about putting the house. And then my next question would be to our legal counsel, what do we need to do since the county owns that? Do we retain ownership and just allow them to put the house there? Do we transfer?
Ownership and have, agree that the house just be placed on the county property. We're not going to be selling or buying, we're just dedicating that property for historical use.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'd like to see some layout of how, hopefully, I know that's a pretty good sized lot. Maybe we'll find some more houses that can be moved there.
Yeah, more houses, or that
Yeah.
land was originally sort of, those two lots that are side by side, where the ball field is now and the next one, and the other lot, were originally set aside with a grant from Texas Parks and Wildlife, I think, as a recreation sort of area. So I think the historic house would fit in with that,
Ms. Reed, you want to speak about that?
Yeah.
Because there's been some conversation about what could be developed there besides moving a house there.
Right, so thank you, Judge and Commissioners and all other county officials. The original grant was from Texas Parks and Wildlife with a stipulation of those two lots that straddle Sixth Street. They're between 7th, 11th, 5th, and the closed 12th Street. It has to be used for recreation. And there are multiple cities in the state of Texas. For example, Hemisphere Park has a Polish community historic houses, so does Dallas, has prairie-style houses, and this could fit in with recreation and historical preservation. The original plan was to have a walking trail around the park, and Judge Whitman has been talking about making sure the walking plan gets done, as well as maybe a splash pad down there eventually. But moving this house would save the house and give a place for young people and others to learn about our area's history.
And as you know, the Wilkes County Historical Society has preserved the jailhouse, and most of those funds have come from the Opry that they had put on. And they have informally talked with me about that they don't have a project now to spend the money from the Opry on. And so it could be that if this house gets moved, that some of the Opry money that they make every month could go to support the restoration of the house and all that, if we can get it moved.
Yeah, so I think the first step is y'all are gonna go into some kind of, or you're going into some fundraising mode. But if this is not possible, then it's all for naught. You have to find another location. I don't see that house would make it further than that point. We'd have to go through the commissioner's lot to get it there.
No, actually,
Shortest way.
actually, there's a street there
street
that's,
there?
yeah, that has been closed off, but it is still a county street, so
So I
we'll
think-
open that up to get the house
I
out.
think what they're asking commissioners is just to give them permission, can we have a portion of that so that we can move forward? Right?
And that's why I would like to see flags of where y'all are wanting and how much of that lot you're wanting to use.
What's your time limit? What is it, October, December?
The house has to be moved by the last day of this year, by December 31st, 2025.
It's given us the rest of this year,
Okay.
6-year plan.
Which is
And-
moving very rapidly.
Yes, it is.
And the Historical Society has, on their website, sent out feelers asking for donations to this project.
If I may also, I think there needs to be some consideration of the use, because it's on county property. If it's gonna be used for public, there may be some consideration of perhaps having a lease for insurance purposes, for activity purposes, and it could be minimal, and it could be $1 lease, it could be something, so that the county understands its responsibility to maintain this property, or to work with the historical society in maintaining, and then the activities that are gonna be taking place, would be taking place on county property, so.
I think we have
that is a
something similar to that for the Renfro house, because we do pay their insurance, the county does.
Yeah, those are considerations.
They have interest in that, so, okay.
And the Historical Society, I think, manages it with the county funds and with the trust fund that we use. So maybe a similar thing could be established.
Okay. Given the time constraint, because December's right around the corner, commissioners, do you want to table this until they get flags out there and figure out where they want the house? We gotta move quick, because they're gonna miss an opportunity here, or we just say we're committing you, the permission to do that and get that developed.
I personally think we can give them permission today, because I think that helps them going forward in their fundraising effort, and we can just make it contingent on review by the county for appropriateness and the location and working out whatever agreement we need to do. Does that work for you, Ms. Earl?
Yeah, and I'm just,
Motion, Commissioner?
I'll make a motion to approve the use of the county property in Sutherland Springs for the Tyner House to be moved on, contingent on approval of all of the legal and boundary items that are required.
second.
Motion made by Commissioner Martin, seconded by Commissioner Cardova. Do you have any other discussion regarding agenda item number 7? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, motion passes. You have your permission.
All right, tell Dodson to get to work. No. We need a few more dollars.
Progress along the way. The house likely won't be moved into January. I
Yeah.
suspect it'll take us that long to raise the funds for it.
Thank you, ladies, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything you do for the Historical Society as well.
Did you second my long-winded motion?
Yeah.
Do you remember who did?
Agenda item number 8, this, hearing of the county auditor, 8A, discuss possible action to approve fee approval for the Thorn Architect Courthouse interior and exterior renovation repair. I think we're gonna have
Thank you,
Lindsay.
yes, Fulton is setting the phone there to dial in to Mr. Lindsey Thorne, who is of Thorne Architects. He's
Yeah,
out of
so
state.
before we get into that, Commissioner, this is the point where everything's starting to fall off, the entrances to the courthouse is becoming a danger to the public. This is the gentleman that did the repairs 12 years ago, or he was ahead of the architect.
Yes,
So he'll be speaking to us about it. He did come through here and he did a quick assessment, and wants to move forward with bringing the other engineers in and take a look at, because there's other problems we've discovered besides the entrances.
So I wanted to give a little bit of background for full transparency. If you remember, Commissioner Martin brought it to the court's attention a couple of months ago regarding the entryways, and that's what brought this project to be started. So Judge Whitman and I had a meeting with the Texas Historical Commission to find out if there was any funding or what the first step would be, because it is going to be quite expensive to get them repaired the way they need to be repaired. In our meeting with the THC, in the course of giving us all of the instruction on how and what the process is, she recommended that we reach out that we contact Thorne and Associates, as well as Kaler, who was the general contractor at the time. So then we had a meeting with them. They came in, did just a brief site assessment, which then leads us here to today. Now, when we approached the Texas Historical Commission, you can download it, I'm sorry. When we approached the Texas Historical Commission seeking funding, there is funding available from THC during the regular course cycle that does not come out until October, November timeframe. However, because these require immediate attention, as you see, all of the 3 entrances of the porticos are blocked off. That was at the request of THC as well. We are available to apply for what's considered out-of-cycle emergency funding to repair the courthouse. And so, Judge, let me give you his mobile number if you want to dial.
Just let me write it down and I'll call him.
210-241-9800. And so we were advised that we could apply for emergency funding. Now, in order to apply for emergency funding for this, we are required to have a site assessment done by Lindsey Thorne and Associates, because they were the ones that did the site assessment and all of the architectural removal work that was done when the county took out the bond for the last renovations.
Mr. Thorne?
Hello, Judge, how are you?
I'm good. You're live here in the courtroom, so you want to?
Yeah, if you can, I don't know if you can hear me, Mr. Thorne, but if you give me just a few minutes to continue describing the project, and then if the county has any questions for you.
Okay, no problem at all. Can you give me just a moment? I'm walking through a mansion. I'm going to stay outside so I can hear you a little better.
Yes, that's fine.
Give me
So the process for the funding, we have to get the professional assessment, which is the proposal that you have in front of you. This is for the courthouse interior and exterior renovations and repair. Mr. Thorne can go into further what they discovered we'll be needing, but it's not just as simple as repairing the entryway doors. There's a lot that go into that in terms of, now the foundation we found is functional and is working great. It's all within the walls that need to be repaired. So you'll see phase 1, part 1 in the scope of the work, and that's what we're bringing to you today. They estimate a cost not to exceed $65,000 for the assessment and the drawings, and then another separate fee not to exceed $15,000, and that's for the construction administration phase. And so one concern was, well, what if we don't secure the funding from the Texas Historical Commission? Because any money that we put forth now prior to getting an award from THC will not be reimbursable. So this is going to come out of the general fund should we decide to move forward.
But you said we have to have this assessment or we can't apply it. So that's what I think we need to contract for first. And then the other stuff, I don't like this contract. I'll just say that right now. Go ahead.
Okay. And so in order for us to move forward with the funding, we have to have this. Now, we were advised by THC, Judge Woodman and I were advised that we have to have this submitted to them sooner than later because they will not approve any out-of-cycle emergency funding while they're in the course of their regular cycle funding that comes out in October. That funding stream is not for emergency repairs. That's if you're going to do a complete restoration of a courthouse, build a new courthouse, et cetera. Because we just recently, in THC's timeframe eyes, our courthouse is in fairly good condition because we just recently had the renovations done. So they do expect us to have the repairs done as well.
So you said the repairs are going to be expensive. So to repair, so what are you talking about getting repaired, and what is the current number you're tossing around?
That would be a question for Mr. Thorne.
Mr. Thorne, are you on the line?
Yes, sir, I'm available to discuss. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Did you hear the question by Commissioner Martin?
Briefly, just the question, what was required on the scope of the exterior, that was the question?
No, the question is what are the estimated repairs, and what is this preliminary cost estimate? Is it we're told it's going to be expensive. So what is expensive?
When the question is, what are the preliminary estimates? When I asked that, he mentioned it could be in upwards of over $1.5 million to repair plus. I don't know for certain, but that was just in
That sound right,
conversation.
Mr. Thorne?
Yeah, that's what we have to, what the whole part of the study is, we'll be looking at, particularly the areas that are immediately needed repairs, that is the public, which is the porticos, and there are certain corbels, downstairs windows are starting to be displaced. So what we're looking at doing is an analysis, a report, and basically establishing documentation, and then work alongside the Historic Commission to establish a budget, where we can then look at what that budget would be for future repairs. But the question was not to exceed $1.5 million. Is that what I heard?
No, the question was what's the estimated
What is the
ballpark?
estimated cost?
We don't know until we actually do the documentation, but that's part of
this is for Ms. Trevino. We, on a reimbursement from the state historical.
Yes.
Do we get a half of that back, half of the repairs back?
If we get the emergency
Yes,
funding,
if we get the emergency funding, we pay half, the state pays the other half?
for the contract, for the project itself,
Yes.
not for Mr. Thorne?
No, for the
Yeah.
project.
I don't believe it was a 50/50, cost share. If I'm not mistaken, I thought it was maybe an 80/20, where we pay 20 and THC is 80% grant funded, but I'm not certain. I need to double check that.
So maybe I misunderstood when Tanya said, okay, if it's emergency, it's 50/50, but she was just talking, emergency, the paperwork come in quicker and, we get the funding needed to move forward, even if it's 20%, correct?
Yes, that is correct, but I don't remember her stating the share amount.
Well, the key to it is creating the documentation that we can establish those the required plans that we need. That's the key to it. I believe that we can help mitigate some future problems by, what I mentioned before, is perhaps removing a valve spray on the south end and creating almost a shed roof on the top of the porticos. Part of the problem's been gradual sort of degradation of the steel from the inside, because I think that, without getting up there and looking, but my opinion at the moment would be there's been, blockage to the drainage up on the top of the porticos, which is creating the damage from the interior to the concrete and the cast stone work, which is causing spalling. The steel is basically rusting from the inside and it's losing its adherence, so that's why the concrete areas have been falling off to the ground. So I think my suggestion would be to mitigate that for the future, to basically infill it and create a roof over the top. At the low now, we wouldn't be able to see it from the ground floor, but basically you take out that, what would be a bathtub that they currently have on top, that's collecting the water and stop any future erosion and damage to the porticos. And what we'll do is we need to work with the Texas Historic Commission on the replacement and repair of what they require for the replacement stuff. We work with the Texas Historic Commission on a number of projects in the past, one of which was actually on the courthouse when we did the initial rehabilitation of some 13, 14 years ago. So they're very familiar with the project, as are we.
So, Commissioner, may I ask, what part of that are you concerned about?
Well, does he plan to have a structural consultant help him evaluate the repairs that need to be done?
Yes.
And seeing all that cost is separate.
Yes.
And I don't know, I think the fee is high, number one. I don't believe to professional consultants that we're gonna pay a retainage fee. I would like to see a more detailed estimate about what they're gonna do on the assessment, and that it includes a report, in coordination with THC to get their buy-off. And I think that needs to be done for a fixed price. That's my personal opinion. There's too many unknowns in this contract, and he wants to be paid hourly. I mean, that to me, doesn't make it conducive for him to manage his staff and his budget. That's the way most of them work.
Judge, would you ask Mr. Thorne, what's the reason of their proposal being an hourly fee versus a fixed fee?
So, Mr. Thorne, did you hear that question?
I think I've got the gist of it. The reason why it's hourly rather more detailed arrangement, I think just what we talked about, I think that the reason we've done it hourly is that it's a fair way to track it, because there are a number of ways that this could go. We need to look at the analysis of with the Texas Fire Commission. And I know, for example, when we did the initial refurbishment of the courthouse, we came up with a concept of how to repair the foundation. But it was one where it's sort of not black and white. We got to do some investigative work to find out what's causing the problem. We've got a pretty good idea that we know that the building was built with pretty poor brick to start with, which is why we're getting all the cracking, the actual, the double, the triple and quadruple wide brick that we have that forms the walls. The reason the building was a stucco on it, originally meant to be a brick building, but they had a stucco just to basically keep the building, whole building together. So that it's not sort of an easy calculation or study. We need to go through the exercise with any, when we meet with the Texas Fire Commission. There are a couple of ways, you know, to look at it. Would they require us to then provide details for replacement of the corbels and the freeze work, for example, that are falling? Could that be, would they require us to actually take that detail such that we need to replace it for the masonry, or would it be, would we be able to, for cost-wise, be able to use another type of material, like a fiberglass material that could have match the same form shape, that it would be lighter and will not be an issue for further.
Okay, but that's all in the final repairs and what would be given to the contractor. I'm just talking about for the assessment. What do we need to do to get the assessment done and to THC and get their approval?
That's part of it. That's part of it, because when you do the analysis itself, you will go there, we will coordinate back and forth with the Texas Fire Commission. We'll do the assessment to say, okay, you have a problem because we're getting spalling and damage to the corbel and the stonework, for example. And they will then come back to us and say, okay, well, you know, you need to coordinate. We need to get their feedback and say, okay, you need to match it exactly like for like with the masonry. And if that's the case, we have to. So it's a two-part deal, because you've got the assessment you have to do. We have to then document what's existing and what's proposed, and then they will then make a comment on, well, you know, you need to do this, this, and this. For us to get an assessment of the cost, that information needs to be accurate. One, for them to establish, yes, okay, that then goes to a general contractor. They'll actually give us the cost to replace it, and then we will probably give you two options. If they say no, you just have to use the concrete. Well, that's what we have to use, or we have to use a poured-in-place masonry, or we have to use patch stone. That's what we have to do. But if I'm getting to what the question you're asking me, you're trying to find an assessment of cost to replace and to repair, correct? Is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm going to getting us to the point where you can prepare bid documents. What is it going to cost to assess it, come up with this work plan, coordinate with THC to get their approval, to know what repairs can be made and how they would be made? And put that in a report format where we can.
Well, I think that's what I was trying to explain, is that we don't know what they can come back with. And so we do an assessment of what we see, an existing condition assessment, which is where it starts. And then they would then request, okay, well, once we've done the assessment, we then send that to them. And then they will say, okay, well, you need to do this, this, and this. Okay. So, but you still need to have a number of what's going to cost to repair it, because all the budget they're going to match is dependent on what it costs to repair it. So you then have to establish documentation to get a costing together. So we've got to draw the portico, show what needs to be repaired, in what areas need to be repaired, all their solution, and we need to actually have that documented and give that to a general contractor and say, you need to do this because it's a price to do that. That can then, that's how we establish the budget, that's how we establish, that's part of the assessment. We're not going to get anywhere if we just do an assessment of the existing conditions, and they said, and you just report what we actually have. They already know that, they've already been out there, they know the condition of the failure of the portico and some of the corbelling. So you've got to provide a number for them. The only way to provide a number for them what needs to be repaired or replaced is by providing documentation to get a price on that. what we're recommending, they may say, oh, that's great. So the reason I'm trying to do is an hourly rate is that you have a ceiling that you're not going to pay more than. But what I'm saying is, if it takes less time and they agree with what we suggest, it may be less than that. We can come up with existing proposals, a fixed number if you like. But it's going to be higher than it would be because we don't know what they can require. And I worked with Texas Historic Commission quite a bit in the past, back to even when we did this courthouse renovation, and we spent many, many hours going back and forth over simple things like what was the original paint color on the windows. And we probably had a 2-day discussion about what's the original paint color because that's what the color they wanted the windows to be painted. It's certain bodies take a little bit more time to get answers from and to discuss their opinion of what is practical. I'm sorry, we just thought this is a fair approach for both the county for paying the schedule and for us. And know that we're covered if we're having exhaustive conversations with Texas Historic Commission versus if the conversations and what we suggest to fix the problem is accepted, then you pay less. That's the reason we thought it's a fairer way of doing it for both the county and for us.
Any questions, Commissioner?
I did want to, excuse me, remind the court that we do have the money budgeted in this fiscal year's budget, which we have available. We didn't know at the time, but when we budgeted a little over 500,000 in non-departmental for building, courthouse building, and repairs and maintenance. We've utilized some of that for some of the other building projects, and we still have well in excess over 300,000, I believe, or somewhere close to there.
Y'all have any more questions for Mr. Thorne? Okay. Mr. Thorne, we're going to let you off the line.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, sir, thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the fee proposal from Thorne Architects for the courthouse interior, exterior renovation and repair.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal for Thorne Architects for the courthouse interior and exterior renovation and repair.
Motion made by Commissioner King, do I have a second? Commissioners, we have a safety issue in this courthouse that we did not get those entrances taken care of, and there's only one exit egress into here. We have something bad going on here. I just want y'all to take that into consideration. I'm not telling you to do, y'all vote your conscience, I'm just telling you, you got a problem. And that safety issue lands on my shoulders.
I realize that, but we're giving them an open checkbook from the get-go on this deal. I agree with Commissioner Martin. I would rather see something a little more solid than just giving them by the hour. I mean, you're just opening the door and saying, here you go.
I believe there's a limit, because I just saw it, there's a limit at $65,000.
$1,000 is what's written in it.
Yeah, but we don't know what services that includes. He's just saying, it won't exceed 65, and then he'll say, well, I didn't include that, but it's not written in here. It's not here for us to argue whether that is included in his proposal or not. And it's not, we don't typically pay architects and engineers a retainage payment. I mean, has the county attorney's office even looked at this?
I gave it to her, I just gave it to her right
Yeah,
now.
it needs to be reviewed. It's got to have more detail.
But we do pay architects retainer fees based on the contract price, so
When have we done that?
we're currently paying RVK and PVK for the two big.
That's not retainage. Retainage is I give this attorney $10,000 to represent me anytime I call him. Why are we prepaying for services till those services are rendered? That's basically what we're doing. That's not typical of architects.
Yeah, from what I see, they want
Or does it say not to exceed $65,000?
It does
Period?
say that.
It says cost not to
Yeah.
exceed $65,000 for phase one. And so
And part one.
part one for the analysis and documentation, that means that phase 2 and 3 are coming. This is,
Because initially, when we met with him, he thought that it would be the smart thing to do to give us a full assessment on all repairs and reconstruction that needs to be done, to include the bell tower and things that were not associated with the emergent needs as identified by THC when they were here. So we went back to him and said, can you break it down just for the emergent needs?
Yeah, the phase one is the entrances,
Correct.
not the other things that he's discovered as he came through the bell tower, the cracks in the wall, that was.
Well, the cracks in the wall and the stairwell and the portico entryways are all included in phase one.
Okay, but again, that is not in this document. He's got to have a detailed scope and a fee that goes with it. If he wants to do it hourly, I really don't care about that. But it doesn't say anything about he'll assign the most cost-effective personnel to the project. You know, I know he's not going to be sitting there arguing with THC at $400 an hour, and I certainly don't want to pay him that much money. You know, a project manager, a senior licensed architect, a cheaper guy that can do that, that should have the experience to do that. You know, there's nothing in there that just says he doesn't charge a lot of his time and a lot of his highest dollar per hour people to the project till he runs out of money and says, I'm done.
Okay, for the sake of, let's move on to our agenda, let's go ahead and table this and have this contract, we get together with them, Emily, let's find out how we can solve this wording out to where it's acceptable to the court. And,
Commissioner, if you could tell me what just send me.
Sure, I'll get with you after court.
The specifics that you would be looking for.
Absolutely.
So, Commissioner King, you want to change that to a table motion?
Well, it just died for a lack of a second.
Okay, but that will be for A and B, correct?
Well, I mean,
Yes?
yeah.
Yes, it's closed, okay. So the motion dies.
Well, and so let me make a comment on B. I don't know that we're permitted by law to do that type of contracting. So I would ask the county attorney's office for their opinion on that before we decide on that anyway.
And I'll get you in touch with Tanya at Austin. She's the one that provided the list of these personnel that's to be used, whatever they have going in the state, so. Agenda item number 9, we have Brenda Trevino, County Auditor, discuss and possible action to approve revised construction budget from Spa Glass for Wilson County Expo Arena.
Yes, so you have before you the final 50% construction document budget, which has gone through several revisions for several meetings of the team working on the project for the design and construction of the Wilson County Expo Arena. Excuse me. Initially, we had established parking, American Rescue Plan funds in the amount of $4.2 million to this project. And I do have representatives here from Spa Glass as well, for any additional questions, but I just wanted to provide you the dollars that we're looking at. If you'll turn to page 1 of 1 in the summary report, which is after tab 2 in the document that you have, it's got the direct cost and indirect cost of the project. Initially, when we first started out, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe, Judge, I think the project was in excess of $7 million. Mr. King, if you remember, I remember the exact dollar amount, but when we first had the initial renderings, it was in excess of $7 million. So we since went back to the drawing board several times, and this is the final document that Spa Glass came back to with direct cost of $4,665,761, which is about $80 per square foot, with indirect cost of $1,117,632 for a total estimated project of $5,783,393. Now, that is not the final contract price. This is their estimate before we go out to bid. This does not include any potential sponsorships for any organizations or people who want to have their name on the plaque. It also does not include any pricing from any local contractors yet. These are just general estimates based on many lengthy discussions between Commissioner King, Judge Whitman, myself, Kayla, and the PBK and Spa Glass. So the cost could, come down significantly, but nonetheless, we needed to bring this to your review and answer any questions that you may have of Spa Glass and myself or Judge Whitman or Commissioner King.
Why would you believe it would come down significantly? What potential is there?
I don't know about significantly, but I would say within maybe between 500, 10 million possibly. That could be because we have not launched our marketing campaign to seek out potential sponsors. We've had some discussion, but nothing concrete yet, as well as having some conversations with local contractors who may be willing to either provide their services or their product at cost or as part of their donation to the project. It could be less than what Spa Glass has received general estimates from. So that just leads us to believe that we could reduce that cost. I don't know how much. None of us can guarantee that, but it could be reduced.
So what's the total amount budgeted for this project?
In this fiscal year right now, we have a budgeted amount of,
Well, okay, let me rephrase that. What is the total complete, full estimated cost of the project, including all these exclusions that they have in their estimate?
the 5,783,393 is the estimate.
But it doesn't include all these things that are exempted from the estimate on page 1 of tab 1. Doesn't include material, doesn't include A&E fees, a lot of things in here are not, those things are, so what is the total budget for the entire project?
My name is Rex Cody. I represent Spa Glass Contractors, pre-construction manager. I can address any questions you have as far as exclusions or clarifications.
Yeah, I mean, I can read your exclusion list, but my question to her is those things all cost money. Just because they're excluded right now doesn't mean they're going to be excluded. So what is the total cost of the project, and what did we budget overall to begin with? Not per se the budgeted this year, because costs are going to go this year and next year. What is the total budgeted cost of the entire project?
Yeah, I mean, we only budgeted for the amount of money that we had from the American Rescue Plan. Last week, the county treasurer, Christina Moots, and myself met, and Kayla, our grant coordinator. So we can tell you what we have in the budget right now.
So,
Is that
so
what you're asking?
yeah, so you have 4.2 in ARP money.
Budgeted.
Budgeted? Or let's just say dedicated, because we won't say.
Yes.
All right, what other funds do we have dedicated to this project? None?
No, that's why I'm.
So already right now, we're $1.5 million short, and we know we're going to have to pay the architect. What are the architect's fees estimated to be?
The architect fees have almost been completely paid.
What is that number?
We have paid,
While she's looking, where is the exclusionary list? in this
It's right behind tab 1,
packet? Right behind tab 1.
the first page.
I left my statement of operations, but I believe it was, let me see if I wrote my notes down somewhere. Christina, do you remember?
Roughly right now,
161, and we still have about 160 left, give or take, to.
So it was about 300
you said 160 and what's up, 320 or 300?
It's 7% of, the yeah, 6%, 7% of the total project, and they've already been billing incrementally since the start of the project. So just to kind of give you some background on finances, when the county was issued the 9.9 million with some interest, we started with $10,062,139. We've since expensed total, not on this project, but total out of American Rescue Plans with the equipment that you purchased since the beginning when we first got the money, $5,087,086, which leaves about 4.9 million, almost 4,975,000. We do gain approximately $14,000 a month in interest, just in the Texas Class account alone. So we're potentially looking at gaining about 168,000, give or take, if the rates remain the same. We do have earmarked $1,080,362 out of the American Rescue Plan for the Emergency Operations Center. That is in the current budget right now, which leaves us $3,894,691.11, which puts us at about 1.8 short. In speaking with Broadus Construction and RVK, I haven't received a response from RVK, but I wanted to know how much is left to bill for the Emergency Operations Center, because that too is gaining interest, has been gaining interest since Ms. Moots pulled the money over to Texas Class, and we may not need all of that $1,080,000 that we have earmarked. So we won't know until the completion of that project, and according to Broadus, we should, today I should receive a timeline of final invoicing and what that may look like, so that we may be able to have some of that money freed up as well.
What is the total cost of this budget, of this project? The total cost, not what we budgeted this year.
You're looking at it, $5,007,000.
That's the total cost of the project.
Minus the excluded items.
I'm looking at the exclusionary items, and of course,
What page is that on, Commissioner?
that is 104, right after tab 1. Whenever we jump to that other, you gave us the number, and it's a little bit farther in, but the very first page.
Oh, he's referring to us, yeah.
So, I mean, we can run down the list. So, A, we know we're going to have construction material testing because there's going to be required inspections by the structural engineer and by the architect. They're going to have temporary utilities. Who knows how costs will escalate. Shouldn't be any tap or impact fees. I don't know what we're going to supply to finish out the building. I don't know who's moving and storing, or if there's anything that needs to be moved and stored. That's a cost somewhere. I mean, I get the removal of hazardous and contaminated soils. Has anybody done any testing? Are we moving that much dirt? That's a concern. No appliances are included. This is supposed to be a shelter of last resort. There's no generator.
No, this is not a shelter of last resort.
Well, that's what it was billed as. When
You're referring to the front part where it's
okay, all right,
yeah.
fine. Then there's nothing being done in the front part.
No.
Not with this project, no, sir.
Okay.
We have an application
All right.
out for funding to,
So why is everybody so concerned about the front part? About not being able to conduct their events and all that stuff?
this has nothing to do with the front part.
Well, they don't seem to understand that then.
Well, can I address that, or can I,
Sure.
do you rent that? Well, I'm just saying.
No, come to the microphone.
I want to address the GLO 1.4 million.
I'm sorry?
The GLO funding that's getting approved for the front.
No, I was just gonna say, since this is a separate item, since it does get run out of our office, those are concerns we haven't heard. So if you heard or you know something different, I can help address that, because I haven't heard anything.
Well, I mean, the Opry, I mean, you read the article in the paper just like everybody else did.
But this doesn't have anything to do with the front part.
Okay, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that apparently is not being communicated and not understood because they're just saying, they're not talking to us and telling us that this isn't going to be closed. So,
Well, nobody has approached us or even asked us. So they
Okay.
did take the information and something was produced without finding all their information
Okay.
first. So
Fair enough.
I can answer about that.
And the folks from the opera, I talk to them all the time, they understand it's probably gonna be 2 years down the road before the other funding comes in to take care of that project.
Yeah.
well, see, but I think that's where the confusion is that people don't understand that this is two separate projects.
Well, and it's, I mean, it's our commissioner court meetings where we would hope that people come here to get the information presented, because we can't speak to, I mean, I don't know how else to get the word out to everyone, other than speaking directly to those who are familiar with it, but we have been stating from the beginning that this is two separate projects. This is the Wilson County Expo Arena, which is a new build project, on the 10 acres that the court approved to purchase. And the front building is a shelter of last resort that we haven't even gotten to yet because we have not finalized the contract for funding of that. That will not take place until we get finalization of the contract from the Texas General Land Office. So
Okay.
it's two separate projects. I would ask that, you know, maybe commissioners, if you want more information or more details to provide to anyone that may ask you about the two projects, Judge Whitman and Commissioner King or myself can give you all of any further information.
Yeah, so this is going to go to the back barn, and that's where we're doing all the construction. Nothing up front is gonna happen. We're not doing anything with the front portion of Expo Center, show barn, whatever you want.
So this work is in the area to replace
It's gonna
the
be
barn that's
connected
there
to
now.
The last building, yes,
So this is new behind it, or this is to replace what's,
to the textile side of it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you just said it was gonna be built on the 10 acres that we purchased. Is that
right,
correct?
that's,
So.
yeah, so how about a site plan?
So
That'll
the-
help.
So the building that's there is not gonna be touched? Not gonna be torn down?
Yes, the one where they have their current shows, animal livestock shows will go down, it's unsafe. The middle portion, the big building next to the newer one stays there, and that's actually gonna be connected to the new expo.
And so in essence, we're not, and when it comes to budgeting, we don't, you know, it's not gonna be anything that we know right now that that it's going to affect our current fiscal year budget. Again, we won't know until Swaglass goes out for bid for a general contractor, what those fees may look like, to give us a better indication of how we're going to budget. What we are asking for the court's review is consideration of the construction documents that have been provided to you, to determine whether or not we can move forward with the project, based on the pricing that they have provided.
So-
Not to exceed, you know, an additional, what you approved for the project originally was the 4.2 million, we're coming at 5.8.
Okay, but you're still short because you haven't included all their exclusions.
That is correct. I mean, that is correct, Commissioner. We don't, that's why I'm saying not to exceed $2 million, because it could be less than 5.8, and the difference could make up the exclusions. But it would, if it got to the point to where it exceeded, what we are, you know, the preliminary approval of the proposal now, then we would have to put a stop to it to come back to the court.
That's true, just like we do with the EOC, that we've had to come back to the court a couple of times, because, once again, there were probably things that were missed over there
That
as
is a
well.
very good example, Commissioner. And for example, we didn't know that the Phelps power line distribution was not included in Broadus's original construction documents. So that's a very good example, because the county had to pay $75,000 in excess of that contract because that was not included.
And that wasn't brought to court,
What wasn't brought to court?
the extra 75,000 for the,
No, what I ended up doing was working with Broadus to get them to revise it out of their contingency line item because it was not brought to court and we didn't have the money budgeted to pay for it.
They took it out of that 2%
Correct. And
contingency.
so they revised their amount in order to do that. But that is an example of something that we were not aware of, that we had to do in order to continue moving forward with the project. And that was just one item. I know, in working with Cindy Stafford, we've come up with several different ones. I came to the court requesting $200,000 for furnishings and different things of that nature, utilizing the interest. So when in all areas, trying to, that's why, you know, we had a really good meeting last week with our county treasurer, because she's able to outline how much additional money that we're getting in interest. Alone, the county alone has already received over $800,000 in interest. That's unallocated. And so this is money that is not, you know, costing the taxpayers. If we bank on utilizing interest that keeps, you know, coming in, we're not that far off. So nonetheless, my role is to present you the information, and you guys ask the questions and make the decisions.
So where is the remaining dollars going to come from?
That's a good question. Judge and I have spoken about that. If you remember at our last commissioners meeting, we had the presentation by our external auditor where our fund balance sits in excess of $16 million. And over the past 2 years, we have pulled from the fund balance to go directly toward each road and bridge precinct for road repairs, because we felt that was a need for our county taxpayers. Depending on where we fall in terms of tax revenue for this fiscal year, I would recommend, and I think the judge and I have spoken about it, about earmarking. We pulled $5 million, a total of $9 million over the last 2 years. Previous fiscal year, we allocated $4 million for the road and bridge precincts. This current fiscal year, we allocated $5 million from our fund balance. $4 million of that went to road and bridge precincts, and the other $1 million went to non-departmental for courthouse repairs. So the plan would be that we present it in the proposed budget for fiscal year 26-27, and earmarking probably not to exceed $2 million. Whether we use it or not, we don't know, but that's where we would anticipate that we would pull it from.
Can we get a complete description of all of this, what they're asking for, some estimate of these additional costs that aren't covered in their contract, and so that we have a full picture of what's going on here? Can we get a site plan that shows how all this is going to be done? I don't know how I'm expected to explain this to people when they ask questions when I don't have anything to work with.
I will defer to Commissioner King and Judge Whitman, because you guys have been
How do we
sitting in
get
the
there if
meetings.
we don't know what it's gonna cost? I mean, he has to have that okay to go ahead and start getting hold of contractors to see what that actual number is.
Come up to the microphone, please. We can't hear you, they can't hear you.
So sometimes exclusions are identified just to understand the scope of work, and there's not always dollars associated with that. Item A, testing, to your point, we will have testing identified in the drawings, inclusive in the budget. Third-party testing, such as concrete testing or soil testing, would be an additional budget item outside of our contract. Job site trailer, we're just assuming efficiencies, and we're gonna use the existing facility to work out of, to save money there, versus bringing in trailers and things of that cost. So there's no dollar value there unless we can't use the facility. Escalation cost, the job is carrying a 3% contingency. That contingency is earmarked. We can use that for escalation, but there's not an escalation line item. There is some protection in the job. AE consulting fees are outside of the project. I think we discussed that earlier. Utility tap and impact fees, it's a county project. I don't believe we'll be having any of those. It's not always the case with city jobs.
Well, yeah, the only thing might be Phelps, if they've got something.
Okay.
Has anybody talked to Phelps yet?
We've got that right.
Yes, an application has been submitted.
Okay. As far as furniture goes, that is to y'all's discretion. We do not carry a furniture budget. There's multiple ways of funding that or getting donations there as well.
moving and storage of owner's equipment. Right now, the commissioner has been working with us to relocate panels and things of that nature, but we do not have a moving crew per se to move anything above beyond that. Hazardous contaminated soils. Once again, if we were to come across something during our excavations, there is a 3% contingency within the job that would take care of that. Audio equipment, we're gonna put the rough in. How you wanna do your PA system, whether it's an existing system or the 4-H, does fundraising, it can be purchased accordingly. Appliances, that would be anything finished out the concession stand. That equipment may exist or may not. Generator is more of a clarification. The project does not have backup power at this time, nor is it designed to have backup power. Lightning protection is not required. It's just a clarification that the job doesn't have it. It is not a code requirement, nor did this building use probably validate lightning protection. Fire sprinkler suppression system. At this time, we do not have one. Plan review may say otherwise, but everything we have square footage wise indicates the building's purpose. Square footage won't require a suppression system. And then demo of y'all's existing expo center, being the back portion of the building, is excluded. So dollar value there, AE consultant fees, this probably needs to be fleshed out in my opinion, and we probably need to allocate some material testing fees. Other items are mainly clarifications. And we already have the soil borings. You already paid for the geotech report, and so we have that. And the only other thing we'll have is concrete testing potentially and compaction tests when we do the earthwork.
What do you think the demolition to the existing expo center is gonna run?
I believe Commissioner King, we're gonna do that ourselves.
So we are talking right now that we're gonna take that little YCB building out because that is currently in the way of the construction. And then further on, after we get done with next year's stock show, we can potentially start removing that other building.
And then we're gonna use whatever pipes that are still good in the old show barn and move it out to the sheriff's range, where he's gonna start building a facility, and everything that we can salvage from there will help build his building.
So everything's gonna get repurposed is basically what we're trying to do. That's why we, as a county, want to demo that center portion. That's the safety concern right now, obviously, for a stock show. But if we can demo that and get it out to the range where the sheriff's department's, then he's got a nice facility, decent sized facility out there. It's gonna save, obviously, quite a bit, besides Pearland and Tim.
Just overall, the job's at $100 a square foot. It's fantastic value for our market right now, commercial construction. So I'm very comfortable with where we are with this budget. To y'all's point, we will competitively bid it. That will probably flush out 3 to 5% savings historically. On a conservative note, when we bid the job. And we've engaged a lot of local contractors today for budgeting. So there's some advantage there too.
Let me see. Yeah, I did have a question on, where did it go? Yeah, you have Jerry Pruski listed under electrical contractors. That's not right, is it?
It's a list of local contractors that we just gave them. That's not an all-exclusive list.
I know, but it got them listed under electrical.
He's a dirt contractor.
Yeah.
And neither is Lauren Plow, I don't believe.
But we've reached out, and they're fully aware of the job. Some have participated in budgeting, and they've really moved the needle as we've moved the project, progressed the project, having had local participation.
Yeah, we'll get the local contractors updated because I think we've had a couple more that have come in and showed
Yeah,
interest.
you'll have some more earthwork and some more concrete. Any utility contractor, RTM is interested as well.
So our goal still remains that we're gonna try to get a local contractor. We want the money to stay here in the county, our contract.
Absolutely. Yeah, and they're gonna have a competitive advantage with that.
You don't have to drive so far, yeah.
Absolutely. So, versus someone coming out of San Antonio or another community. And they'll have to meet all their insurance requirements. Sometimes that's a limitation, depending how big they are. If they carry commercial contractor insurance.
million to be budgeted. What we're asking the court to approve, which is what's on the agenda, is to approve the, small glass construction document budget of $5,783,393. Knowing that that amount could change, but we don't know what we're going to budget for. I can tell you comfortably that we will not exceed $2 million from the original $4.2 million that was budgeted in this fiscal year for this project.
And because of the other savings in the other area, could be way different, could be.
It definitely could. So, Commissioner, maybe the motion would be to approve the 5.783393 or not to exceed that amount so that we can move forward with being able to answer your questions more clearly once we go out for bid for the construction, for the general contractor.
I'll make a motion to approve the revised construction budget for Small Glass for Wilson County Expo Arena for $5,783,393, not to exceed that budget.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner King, seconded by Commissioner Curto. For the any other discussion regarding agenda item number 9?
I just want to say, this is a lot of money. I got it. I understand it.
It's a lot of money.
But whenever I go to stock shows, and I'm watching kids showing, and I look up and I can see the sun or
The rain, more likely.
rain is coming through on the show barn that we are currently in. These kids, somebody's gonna get hurt. So what we gonna do? We wanna rebuild that center section and redo that? Or do we wanna have a nice facility where we can make this thing something different to bring this community back together? So it's a safety concern for me. That's the reason I like this design, the team that we put together and everything else.
And Commissioners, we can provide you copies of the actual design documents that have been provided by PDK, which aren't the gigantic ones, they're kind of smaller, so you can take around with you and show your constituents what they are getting, for their money.
I think that would be helpful, and of course, the sentiment that Commissioner Martin put out at the beginning about, there were newspaper articles, there obviously were people confused about two different projects that we're looking at doing, and how they were connected, and how they would affect, and so.
I understand that. I wasn't part of that newspaper
No,
article,
but-
but I did read it and was confused as well, so I can understand how somebody could get confused.
Army is here today to correct.
Well, and I mean, the chief's in the back, he'll tell you that whenever a fire starts and left unattended, it usually doesn't put itself out, it usually grows. And so, I know that some of them said we're not seeing transparency, and I believe that they were being talked about one project, but they didn't know why they were hearing about another.
And I did receive
And-
about 4 phone calls after that article came out, and I explained the exact same thing that I explained here in court today, but I welcome anyone that has any additional questions. They're more than welcome to call me, and I certainly can tell them where every penny's going, so how it's allocated into 2 different projects.
But we're fairly certain the amount of ARPA money that we parked for it is not gonna take and be, with this quote, it doesn't look like it's gonna be enough. It looks like in order to finish the project out, we may have to get into
We will
our
have to-
fund balance.
We will have to budget for it from county funds, yes.
Okay.
And that's, you hit the nail on the head. We don't have enough American Rescue plans to complete the project, but we need to spend the American Rescue plans on this project. And in order to do that, we come to the court for approval for the additional, which may be $1 million this new fiscal year, and $1 million next year. We don't know, because we don't know what the timeline's gonna be like until we progress after today. Hopefully.
All right, any other discussion? Call for the vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against?
I abstain until we get some more get this additional information, the budgetary information, site plan, all those other things.
So noted. All right, motion passes. Move to agenda item number 10. Commissioner King discuss take action on Wilson County Fire Marshal.
So, we're at a point within this county, we had a fire marshal, we never budgeted to get a fire marshal back. We did go into a contract with, District One, and I appreciate that, Chief Johnson. So, we've got a lot going on with this county within, development, within different reviews and everything else going on. I'm asking the court to come up, and we need to get a fire marshal back into the system within this county. And the fire marshal is not over the fire chiefs. We don't have any code, we don't have anything going on right now. And Chief Thompson gave me a phone call the other day. They are removing themselves currently because there's a lot going on. And there's a lot of backlash for no reason. But right now, we don't have anybody doing anything. So right now, technically, development has pretty much stopped. Everything is stopped. We have no fire marshal. We have no contract. We have nothing. So.
I got it. So what does our contract with them say? I mean, can they bow out immediately?
They could. We still got that?
I don't know, I haven't seen the contract. I mean, I've seen it, it's been a while. Chief, come on up.
Yeah, I think it's when the person left. When the person left
It's
that
been a while.
was certified that
Contract,
healthy.
I believe, it's a 30-day notice. Right now, we have committed to any current, once something is received, it takes a while. So we've committed that any permits that have been received, will continue to do that and work through that. We would just ask that we're out of any other future ones.
So, let's say we vote on getting a fire marshal. Could you stay on until that's completed?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're willing to do it. Our issue is, we're collecting, it looks like we, the district, is enforcing and making the fire code for the entire county, and we've gotten backlash from people that, what is District 1 doing over here on this side? So we would like the county to be a little more involved, and I do think it is time for the county to have a fire marshal. My only comment on that is that they be TCOL.
I was gonna ask you that question.
Without TCOL, their hands are tied behind their back.
Sheriff, could you carry that commission? Good. Okay.
So either, if you hire somebody, either with the intent on they get it within a certain amount of time, or they already have it, one way or the other. But yes, sir, if the request is put to us to continue doing the review, we can certainly help with that.
And everybody's qualified, we have qualified personnel.
So since we've had to let Carl go, we don't have a plans examiner on staff. We have people in training for it, but we are contracting with several people outside of our agency to do those plan reviews.
And that contract is costing county and his.
It's costing us, I mean, it's coming out of the fees.
So either way, we're paying for it.
Is Monfort, do we have a slot for that? Is there some position right now?
I can speak to that.
All right, go ahead.
If you remember, we budgeted for a county engineering department this fiscal year, which we've not been able to successfully fill. I did budget for the entire department, including a salary plus supplies and training, mileage and so forth like that. So in speaking with Commissioner King, when he was asking where we would get the money in order to hire a potential fire marshal, I made the recommendation that if we're not going to fill the county engineer position this fiscal year, that we utilize that money that's already been budgeted, which I believe may be enough for right
I
now.
thought we had already done away with that slot and named another slot for an inspector within the department.
No, not, that was a different, that was regarding the positions that were held in permitting and development. You approved a county engineer department in this fiscal budget that has nothing completely separate from that. The intent was to hire a county engineer, and then you decided not to, but the money still stayed that was budgeted for that department.
No, but I think you're right. I mean, there was something where we did some shuffling to get either another spot or something.
Our assistant director.
Yeah.
So was that the slot that the
But
commissioner
that
talked
wasn't
about?
pulled from the engineer
But it's
department.
not from the engineering. Is it?
It
No.
came from those funds, I'm pretty sure. We're gonna have to look it up because
I don't think it
I
did.
think we repurposed that title because we don't have enough money in this budget item to get an engineer.
She didn't have enough, well, she didn't have enough salary budget either.
And so,
No, I will go back to confirm, but I don't believe, I would have remembered, I would have had to brought a budget amendment to you to remove money from a totally different department. If it was within their department that we were swapping out a position for a position to increase and decrease, done within that, that wouldn't have required you may have approved it, but it wouldn't have required an actual formal amendment to the budget because it was within the same department. And I don't remember bringing you a budget amendment to reduce the county engineering department budget to increase permitting and development. But I will certainly go back and check county clerk records to see if that was
I think we
approved.
did that very thing. I can't give you dates, but I'm almost certain that we did.
Okay,
I know we met in executive session and discussed how to get rid of Mrs. Huron's going,
Yeah, I recall it.
Oh.
And I don't know whether it was in the allocation of the funds for the engineer to another position in the planning department. or-
Okay, I can verify that.
Separate, I mean, probably just need to
Okay.
to have that fixed.
I will look. As it stands today, we still have the money budgeted in the engineering department, and they are not over budget, so I'll have to verify.
Well, the follow-up question would be, do we still have the title or the position of fire marshal?
We do not.
Okay.
This would
And I
be a
didn't think that we
completely
did, so
separate, yeah,
it'd
this
be a
would be a
creation of a
completely
new
separate,
Employee and a new division,
correct.
and does that get to be made now as an emergency, or does it have to be budgeted for in the new budget year?
Well, my recommendation and thought was that we would utilize the funds that are in the department that was created for engineering department and just change the name.
Right.
But now,
But it's
I
not
would need.
about the money, it's about whether or not we're creating,
But it is, because you wouldn't be able to create a brand-new position without me being able to tell the court where you're going to pay that position out of. If you're just going to utilize current budgeted monies for a county engineer, then your decision would be to rename the county engineer department to the county fire marshal department, and that would be a switch of keyboard, not money.
This would fall under it would be its own line item, its own department, nobody else's.
Correct. It would act as, it would report to emergency management director, which would be the county judge.
Yeah, so what I'd like to see is I would like to see a good job description written up that let Chief Thompson look over it, what the requirements for this position are, because I think that needs to be very detailed, because we're going to be expecting this individual to be doing a lot of things, so they're going to need to be, certified in plan review and inspections and all kinds of other stuff that we don't know, so I think that's the first thing we need to do, and we ought to approve that before we advertise for that position, that we're all in agreement, who they're going to report to, how that's going to work, if the sheriff's going to hold this commission, all of those kind of things, so that whenever they interview, that's the questions they're going to ask us. Who am I reporting to? Who's holding my commission? Et cetera, et cetera.
I don't want to throw everything on Chief Thompson, I mean,
I'd be happy.
You might as well, we throw everything else.
Well, I mean, we're doing
And
the
that's the
job,
thing.
so I think we understand what's required of it. And I want to just clarify one thing. We do have inspectors on staff, we just don't have the plans examiner. So that's the only one we're contracting out, it's not costing the county any money. We're taking out, we have a 50-50 split on permit fees. We're taking that burden on our side, not county side. But yes, I'd be happy
so we still need to approve that job description and then find out for Ms. Potiphar, here's the requirement.
That's up to you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the way I see it. You gotta approve the position and then let HR start with the chief assistant. What are the requirements?
And you want to approve the position contingent on available budgeted funds, or approve the position and modify and amend the budget to increase
Well,
it?
I think the thing is maybe to help it out, is let them do that. You do what you need to do and bring it back to court next time, and we should be able to approve it. We'll know what the budget issue is, and then authorize them to advertise for it so we can.
That'll
But I
give
think that person ought to be on, it ought to be an interview board. And, maybe like Commissioner Aiken and Chief Thompson and the judge and Jalen ought to be the interview committee for that. I mean, it's a pretty important
Agree with the
position.
committee and all that, but don't we have to approve a position first before we bring them in?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was confused there.
Yeah, and that's what all I was saying is they can do all of their homework and get this job description and everything written, and then we can approve everything in the next court. We'll
And
know
that will
where
give-
it's gonna come, whether we need to do a budget amendment, and that, what these qualifications they're gonna have to have on.
And that will give our auditor time to confirm. the
Right,
funds.
confirm, figure out how we need to do it,
Yeah, and then Jalen made a good point that it's only going to affect now probably 3 months of this current fiscal budget, so we would be able to budget appropriately in October anyway, so we're only.
Regardless if that position was taken out of that, the money's still there.
Right.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
so, just want.
But if y'all
not
give us
take
the
any action on
approval,
that,
if-
wait till all this research is done?
Now, I would request approval for the position so we can start working on it.
So I'm gonna make a motion
Thank you.
for Wilson County to approve a position for a fire marshal.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner King, seconded by Commissioner Aiken. Do we have any other discussion regarding agenda item number 10? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, motion passes. Agenda item number 11, we have Commissioner King again, discuss take action of fire suppression variance for Expo Center show barn.
All right, so with the fire department, or talking to Chief Thompson as well, you ain't gotta come back up unless you want to, Chief, but, so, we have with the show barn expo center that we are looking to build, it is a big building. Okay? It's got a full-size arena on it. The thing is, we don't have 100%, there's only, the occupancy is not going to take up the full arena. Okay, so, what we're trying to do is, there's a variance right here for y'all to look at. The building size would require a sprinkler system, okay? But with the amount of people, like I said, does not, because we do have the exit doors to get out. Just like we do up front, we always have basically a fire watch up there, okay? Your fire watch is your deputies or any, law enforcement, up front, where we can get people out, exit doors and everything else. So that is what we were asking to remove, is a fire suppression system within the building and use it as a fire watch. So either you have, we'll have a deputy there, so that's part of the contracting already, I believe, Ms. Moots, right? You have security all the time whenever you rent that place out.
Yes.
Yes, so,
Whether they have alcohol or not?
No, it is based on alcohol.
Okay.
So that is one thing that we will have to have in the contract to rent that back building out, is to have a fire watch to get people out of the building.
And that's what I make a note, I saw small glasses reports, some appliances, there are no appliances there.
Correct, everything is done outside, and there's nothing
Not cooking
outside.
there.
Concession stand is bring it in, and Sir Valley concession stand, everything else is done outside. All the cooking, all the barbecuing, whatever is outside. And that's the variance we're looking for.
Y'all know my position on variances. We already grant too many variances. We're the ones that enacted the fire code, And I think as people who decide this, we should not be granting a variance to ourselves. That's my opinion.
So the argument about fire suppression systems is always twofold. And one side is protecting the occupants whenever they're in there. And the other side is, well, it's just meant to take and put out fire so that you don't lose the structure. Obviously, the structure is probably metal construction and is not gonna have a fire load to be able to catch on fire. It's just whether or not, whenever the occupants are there, that whatever we bring in is gonna be flammable in nature. You know, occupancy on average is only gonna take them to be an hour a week. The problem is like the commissioner said, are you adding additional liability for that hour per week? I mean, it just, and are you taking advantage of, we're now requiring everybody else to do it, and now we're asking to exempt ourselves from the same rule. Do we
Yeah.
know what fire suppression would cost in there? Has there been a,
He left already.
I mean, they left it out as far as the cost of putting it in, but I didn't know if there was an evaluation done on the building on what it would cost.
There was at one point. Did they take it out?
I know that they were only, it was only for certain areas where.
Like concession
Acres of the
stand
concession stand in
and the office building, we will have fire suppression in there. So. No, this ain't to take everything out.
It's in the middle of the barn where dirt's at.
And, I mean, once again, we're kind of in the trap of, without having a picture in front of me, I'm trying to visualize what we're talking about. And
Yeah, then if there were, so you're asking to take it all out?
No.
Okay,
No,
well, that's
we
not
don't
what
want
that's not what this variance says, I don't think.
We're not trying to take it out of the, we want to keep it in a concession stand and the office building.
can we have a diagram of
Yep.
what we're talking about by the next court?
Yeah, doesn't matter.
And address it then, because that's not really time contingent right now, it's just,
I'll make a motion to table item 11.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Martin, seconded by Commissioner Cardone. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? The agenda item number 11 will be tabled and we'll bring it back up next court. Agenda item number 12, Ms. Lucerato, Permitting and Development Director. 12A, adopt International Fire Code 2021 ordinance, discuss decision.
Yes, good morning. So, last year, the county accepted and adopted International Fire Code 2021. So what we're doing at this time is having a specialized order to be posted on our website. And as you can see in your packets, I provided that for you. This would be the actual ordinance that would be adopted.
Is this the ordinance that we talked about in the last?
Yes.
Yes, he was asking where that was. This is the one where, yes. So when we took on IFC 2021, it was very broad. And, you know, we can't just go around picking and choosing whatever comes in applies. So with this ordinance, it's a little bit more specified with what we're asking for.
Actually, this is just the step we left out, I believe. I believe it's adopted, correct?
never did adopt it
But we never
in
did
court.
adopt the formal, or we don't have a formal order signed and on file. That's the problem, right?
So that's what we're looking for, is the actual ordinance to get signatures on and to be posted.
I'll make a motion to adopt the Fire Code 2020, International Fire Code 2021 ordinance, county ordinance.
Motion made by Commissioner Martin, seconded by Commissioner Aiken. Do you have any other discussion on 12A? Here none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes. Let me find that one sheet for you to sign.
I have that. If
previous when we had signed the fee schedule and everything, just not the actual ordinance. And if I could speak on, as far as the expo center, the variance that we were asking for Commissioner King was asking for, is not to take out all the fire suppression out of the sprinklers, but because of the occupancy, you take into consideration the whole area of the arena, which is an arena. and
Vast,
it's not,
it's
yeah,
extensive.
vast and extensive, and it doesn't encompass filling it every inch of it with people. So what they are proposing, or Spal Glass, was that we do the sprinklers where the concession stands and where the people would be, not entirely encompassing the entire arena. And to make up for that, we would have other things that we cover up as far as fire watch or exits and having people, we would make up for it as far as that.
The only thing about fire watch is that it's a human component, and it's not always followed through with whenever it's a human component. That's about it.
And
so,
I also suggest possibly looking into
and
other
pictures are worth 1,000 words. If we had a diagram to be able to take a look at, we'd be able to.
I do have a Dropbox on that entire arena that I can share with the commissioners if you like, with site plans and.
We can just bring it back next time.
Yes, sir.
All right, agenda item 12B, utility permit 801, Southern Springs Water Precinct 4, County Road 316, review and approve.
So this is a utility permit pulled by SS Water suggesting or asking for a bore on County Road 316. The plans have been provided to Commissioner Aiken since it is in his precinct, and he's looked them through.
I've inspected the site. I have no problems with it being located there. So I make a motion that we accept utility permit 801 from SS Water Supply on County Road 316. Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Aiken, second by Commissioner Cardone. Any other discussion on 12B? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, ayes have it, motion passes. Agenda item 13, Jim Stewart, our county sheriff and sheriff's office progress report.
Have nothing to say, sir.
That's good news. All right. Move to agenda item 14, utility taking, our county clerk discuss and take action on commissioner court minutes.
You're safe. You made it. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the 3 May meetings.
Thank you, sir. Motion made by Commissioner Mark, seconded by Commissioner King to accept the court minutes. Any other discussion on agenda item number 14? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Ayes have it. Motion passes. I'm gonna sign these and send them down to y'all.
We don't need to sign.
Send it to her.
Oh, here.
Agenda item number 15, we have Jaylene Bosford, our human resource specialist, but she has advised me before it started that she has no report, correct? Okay. Agenda item number 16, Linda Trevino, discuss take action on county business.
I've presented $1,008,411.05 that I've reviewed and approved. Bulk portion of that is our annual property renewal insurance, and so that's included in there. I also have one request from Sheriff Stewart. He had a vendor, Edward Rangel Jr. from ET's Welding and Fencing, who did some work for him, and Mr. Rangel did not get him the invoice until this morning, and he is asking if there was any way that we could include it. I do not have it in your report. If you want to consider including it, that invoice amount is $8,875. Sheriff Stewart can speak to it. If you want to include it, then we would modify the cover sheet to include that $8,875. If not, he would wait.
That was the fence at the range. It's complete.
How much was that?
What was it, Mayor?
$8,875.
Fence it there, the gun range. So the whole area's done, huh?
The whole area is done.
Okay. I'll drive out there and look.
One-
Addition to the million?
Yes, it would be. So if you want to approve that, it would be $1,017,286.05. You think you're going to approve that second one? Okay. 1,001,017,286.05.
Brenda, I'll get you a hard copy of W-9.
I'll email it to, I could email it to Amanda.
Get it all out of there because it's lunchtime.
Just, take this with me. Evelyn, I need to see you for a minute if you got a minute.
I'll make a motion to approve the bills for $1,017,286.05. That's including the sheriff's
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner King, seconded by Commissioner Carrabolo. Any other discussion on agenda item number 16? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, motion passes. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
That's the third time y'all have done that to me. It's like you don't want to leave.
Another 45 seconds and we would have made it high noon. Now, a minute and 40.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Against, we are adjourned at 11:58 a.m.
Commissioners.
Yeah.
Commissioners. Our